Hello guys. Just give me one moment, just updating a post, and then I'll get properly started. Is the current state of the project. There we go. Cool. Yeah, so sorry that I've missed basically the last week of streams. Not really ideal, but it's just kind of how things have landed. I've been mad busy at work. But yeah, so while I was off streaming for the last week, I've bought Yeti. So I've got an indie license for that now, and I'm going to use that for this project. I just wanted to learn something that isn't X-Gen. I'm going to test it out. Obviously, there's a few things in the scene that need grooming. So we've got the monster, we've got the kid's head hair, and we've also got kind of the general cloth grooms that we'll be doing. We have to do kind of, especially for the scarf and the coat, we've got to do like stray fibers and stuff to make it feel nice and soft. But definitely going to be starting with the monster just because it's the thing that will make the biggest visual difference, like for the whole project. There's no point working on stuff that's not going to be noticeable as the first stuff. So in terms of what I'm going to go for, I've got a few different references, and we'll be getting started pretty soon. But yeah, so the references I'm primarily working with, I need to kind of arrange this sheet, but let me just quickly move that up there. I'm going to put all the groom ref together. So for the creature, because obviously for the human characters I've got other references that I need to find. But for the creature, I kind of want to get something that feels like this sort of stuff. So the closest real life thing to his fur is going to be a yak, or to what I've got in mind, because obviously we've got our main reference for the project here. And this just feels to me like it should be clumpy and matted and all that stuff. So the closest thing to what I could find in my head, and something we've chatted about in previous streams, was a yak. So something like this, maybe not this matted, this is crazy chaotic. And again, because I'll be using Yeti, I'm not sure how we can kind of achieve some of these looks, but it's, you know, it's something I can kind of play about with. Daddy Reliance here, oh no, Squareball. I don't recognize the username, but obviously I know you if you know of Daddy Reliance. But yeah, anyway, so this is going to be kind of our main reference, I think, in terms of like some of the matted clumps like these guys. Maybe not this stuff up here, because that's going to be crazy to get. And I do have limited resources. I am on, you know, one computer. This would be the next best reference, I think. So mainly the kind of front of his head, like it's not as matted as the other one. But I think it just has quite a cool look to it. Maybe texturing wise, I can take a bit of information from this. I can kind of get how it goes towards a lighter brown towards the tips. Granted, I'm not going to be doing that in this stream because I need to learn the whole pipeline for Yeti. In this stream, we'll probably just be blocking. Won't be getting anything that looks great in one stream. The reason I posted this to CG Grooming Artists is just because, like, I generally like to share when I'm starting grooms, and there's quite a lot of people out there who don't really know the process. So I figured, you know, if I'm doing it in a new software, they may as well see kind of how painful it is for professionals as well. And yeah, so those are the two main ref. The next most important ref is probably this guy, because I obviously need to blend it into a mask, and you know, this mask was based on him, vaguely at least. I need to do a few more passes to get this feeling right. But I really like how, like, obviously these are strings, but I really like how this feels. Like it's like matted, but in a puppet kind of way. I kind of like it. So this is going to be some general style guide, and I'm going to have to do like a braided rope to do the border of the mask. Luckily Yeti has a braid tool, so I'll probably just use that. Although this will be a lot more kind of diffuse shaded rather than hair shaded. And then the last reference is a kiwi bird. If you're wondering why, I wondered that myself. I just kind of like how the feathers look. So obviously I'm not going to do like the whole thing covered in feathers, because that would just be stupid heavy, and I don't think I'd like the look, but I am thinking of hiding a few feathers in there. So one test I did off stream is this guy. So this is like the first render I did in Yeti, or the first like proper render. Obviously did like, you know, just a regular sphere groom to start with to actually get it working, because Yeti's a fucking nightmare to install. The fact they don't have it installed yet bothers me so much. But this kind of look of like having feathers mixed in with clumps, I find it quite interesting to look at. Maybe not this many feathers, and I don't know if I'll go with the iridescent effect, like if I want the purple and the greens and stuff. But it's stuff we can play with. I feel like it'd be quite a bit of fun. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to shut up and get on with it. So if anyone has any questions, do feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to kind of chat about other stuff. I don't know how long I'll stream for tonight. To be honest, I've had a fucking ridiculous day at work, so I might burn out quite quickly. But yeah, I just figured it's been a week since I last did anything, so I may as well get into it. Oh, and I guess there'll be a few new people here because I posted it. Hello, S-Creams. Hello. This is the render we've currently got. Obviously no fur. The only groom we've got in this scene is actually the floor, but that's been converted to polygons. This is just XGen. So yeah, this is what we're kind of starting with, and I'm going to work on the monster. So let's get this closed and let's get started. If you have technical questions about Yeti, I'm not the person to ask. So please do keep that in mind. I'm really not the guy to go to. If you do want to learn more about Yeti, the two best resources out there at the moment are probably Mario. Oh God, how do you pronounce his surname? Let me just get the. Let me just get his surname because I want to mention him. I think it's Mario Reitbauer. This guy. I'll put him in the chat. And then you've also got Yuri. I think it's Dulwich, spelled like that. Yuri Dulwich. One too many L's. Yeah, so those two are like the two guys really that I know of for Yeti that are kind of at the peak. There's also some other people out there. I know there's a duo. I forgot their name off the top of my head, but they do quite a lot of really cool stuff. But yeah, so anyway, I'm just going to get on with it now. So, do you prefer Ornatrix over XGen? Never used Ornatrix, so I can't say I do. But yeah, so let's just get, I'm going to create a Yeti node on mesh, and this is going to be for our monster. And let's just quickly make sure it's on the right thing. Cool. So this is going to be, I guess we'll go with monster for body. I also need to kind of simplify my scene a little bit, but yeah. We've still got animation in the scene, which isn't ideal. The monster isn't animated. But yeah, so let's get started on this. So we got import, let's call this import geo, pick the actual geometry. Oh, I should name that geo. That would be good. So let's just char monster body geo, and let's check, see if that works. Probably won't now. Go to Yeti, go to graph, import objects. Here's that. So I guess this is just, there we go. So import geo, we're going to want to create a groom. So let's create Yeti groom on mesh. And this one, I'm going to call the same thing and just put groom at the end. These are the conventions I like to go for. Oh, Francesco Di Luisi. Yeah, he's the one I was thinking of. Is it? Oh, it's Antipost. That's what I was trying to think of. Him and one of his friends both work there. I forgot. I'm awful with names today. But yeah, Antipost, they're incredible with Yeti. They did a lot of the intro to Yeti tutorials, which I did watch after buying it, so I do recommend them as well. So let's go into this. Let's grab our groom, add grooms. I'm just going to add that guy. Let's grab the shape. Cool. Import this. I'm just going to call that import groom. If I need to later, I can rename that. And I guess this is going to immediately break because there's no curve, so it didn't. Not surprising. And let's throw a curve comb node in there now. And then I'm just going to hide this. So edit groom. Then we're going to need the toolbox. Let's drag that over on this side. Come on. There you go. I actually kind of want that to be ideally on the other side of these guys. There we go. I can just minimize that.
So let me just see. Okay, I recently modeled the face of a dog. I'm thinking of doing, thinking to use this chance to groom it, but unsure kind of references I should look into. It depends on what kind of dog you're doing, obviously. If you're wondering what kind of reference to look into, obviously real reference is the primary thing. It depends on art style as well. One thing that I often say is like, even the most stylized grooming is one of those things where it's always so close to reality, because fur is just fur. Like you can only stylize it so much, and the way that you stylize it is using the real forms. I know it's the same with modeling, texturing, everything else, but with fur it always just feels a bit more like even really toony grooms are quite physically possible if they're well made. So just primarily look at real reference and have style go. I mean, as I said, like, this is my main ref, and this is the one that I like the style of, but I'm going to be looking at real animals to kind of get how that feels, because fur is really easy to make it feel fake, like really, really easy. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and place some curves. So I'm just going to place a few guides. I need to decide if I'm going to do it in grid spacing or use the scatter tool. It's something that'd be quite helpful. I think I'll go with a scatter tool. So let's go with strands, set the minimum distance to, let's see how big 1 is. That might work for now. I can add more guides later. So normally I don't work like this. Normally the way I like to go is I'll place guides one at a time. I also really need to hide my environment. Do I have that in the layer? I do not. Yeah, I tend to recommend having everything kind of split out. So render geo is where it's in. So with guides, I'll always go through and do, where's the glass? There it is. I'll always go through and do one guide at a time. I just find it way easier, but I think in the case of just testing out this software, I kind of want to see what everything's like. Something's already broken. Where's that coming from is the question, I guess. Cool. So let's see if I can get that actually to edit groom. I guess one thing I'm completely at the mercy of is like, I'm grooming really realistically like for the first time in this tool, and I'm doing it live, which is slightly terrifying. I did question about the style. Oh, it's German Bulldog. German. I've never actually seen a German Bulldog. I did question about the style, as the character is pretty stylized besides the face. Thanks, sorry to bug you. Oh, you're not bugging me, mate. Don't worry. I don't. So one thing I always go on about, like quite a lot, is like the whole thing of there's no such thing as a dumb question. You're not bugging me by asking me questions, so please don't worry about that. The last thing I want is for people to feel like out of place or something like that. Let me just try painting this. Okay, so let's try value of 2. Cool. I'm just gonna flood that. I think this is flood. Yeah, fill. Might be a little bit long. We'll find out, I guess. I'm also gonna turn down my speakers because I don't want to blow people's eardrums out. I'm also going to hide my light group because it's getting really distracting. I'm going to hide my camera as well. I'm going to keep everything else in the scene though, because I think having all this in place is pretty important. So select you again, edit groom, and then I'm just going to try the, I'm just going to straight up use this. So I'm going to also turn off the display for this. Yeah, because something I need to find out is like how, what is the easiest way to work with this? Because I genuinely don't know. Oh, I also need to resample these. Let's go to like 6. So there's probably a gravity effect somewhere in Yeti. Again, like I'm completely new to Yeti, so if you want to know how to use the software, this is not the place. I also don't know how to do like a kind of minimum distance thing, like how to get the collision a set distance from the mesh. Is there a thing for that? I also want to turn this on now. Probably not. World start frame. This is going to have such a horrible time. Collision objects, collisions.
Okay, it looks like it's not there. I'm sure there is somewhere in here. Like, I know there's the elevation tool, but because Yeti guides do actually collide with a mesh, which is quite a nice feature, but I don't know if there's a way to control the actual, like, how it collides with the mesh. But what I'll probably end up doing is deleting most of these guides, to be honest. We'll see kind of how it works. Or just going through one by one once I've placed them all vaguely where I want them. So let's just focus on one area for now. So most of this is actually out of frame. The final frame is this. So basically once we get past, God, this is getting a bit compact, isn't it? Once we get past kind of this point of the neck, you can't see it. And once we get past about here, you can't see it. So I'm not going to worry too much about up here. Obviously I want it to look about right so that I can use, so that the shadows don't feel weird. Because the shadows will be on screen obviously, so let's try using the sculpt tool. Grim. Cool. And I'm just gonna grab this guy. So one thing I found pretty quickly, because obviously I have been using this a little bit off stream, just to kind of get used to it. One thing I found is, like, I hated the sculpt tools up until I realized that the default number of CVs on a guide is way too fucking high. I found that once I kind of corrected that, I resampled up here to like 6 or 7. It acted a lot more like what I'm used to with XGen. So if you're finding that the guides are horrible, just try that. Because I definitely hate the guides. I mean, definitely, I'd say the guides of XGen are objectively better, I think. At least for me. So I guess objectively better is a strong term, but it's something that's worth kind of looking into, really. Is just making sure your sample is about right.
I used to go to events like VFX Festival where they have panels where they say no such thing as stupid question. I can blabber on. Also, watching your old streams, really interesting. I wanted to ask you during your stream, as I started to nice stylized character pose a concept. What made you put it in T-pose and then rig instead?
I put it in T-pose because I wanted to learn how to rig. I also don't like sculpting in pose because I suck at sculpting. So whenever I can, I'll save myself the pressure. This just looks so weird for some reason. I feel like the display is quite odd. But yeah, like, I wanted to kind of learn to rig because I do enjoy being a generalist like type of role. I mean, I work as a look dev artist, but I'm definitely more of a generalist in skill set. Like, I think I try to keep myself quite diverse. I don't like only being, you know, okay at one thing. I'd rather be okay at multiple things and good at one, maybe. Grooming is obviously the thing that I've targeted the most because that's what my job was for a long time. But I don't like getting out of date with stuff because ultimately it's not because I want to be able to do what everyone else can do. It's more because I don't like being left out with skills. So, you know, when I'm in a meeting, and this will be really boring, but when I'm in a meeting with a rigger, for example, I want to be able to communicate with them. I want to be able to say, like, you know, actually understand what they're saying and not feel like I'm completely left behind, because otherwise I'll make really unreasonable requests on other artists. And if I know how to do it myself, I can also know, you know, I can make sure I bother the right people. Like if something in the rig breaks, you know, some people, like, it happens endlessly in any department. You'll be asked by the wrong department for the wrong kind of fix. So, like, you might be in look dev and you'll be given a fix that is clearly for texturing, but they don't know that because they don't know how to do look dev. So I always try to learn a bit of everything, and rigging is one of those things that I hate it. So it's easy for me to fall out of it and, like, not keep up with it. So I just wanted to correct that, really, and do a little bit more.
I've missed a few messages. One thing I noticed, creating feathers in Houdini are incredibly easy compared to other tools. Yeah, Houdini's got some really nice, some really nice tools. I quite like the feather system in Yeti, to be honest. I found it, I mean, granted I've been using XGen for a long time, and obviously I've used proprietary tools at, like, NPC when I worked there, and they're really nice as well. The feather workflow in that is great, but, like, what was I going to say? Like, other than that, I've only really used XGen in my own personal work, and everyone knows the feather system in XGen, well, it doesn't have one. That's the issue. It has archives, which are a bit shit. What's the next thing?
So I'm wondering if I just want to target one area and get it to basically finished, or if I want to, or if I want to not do that. So let's pull you up. But yeah, one thing I am quite liking in Yeti though is that it doesn't draw any, and I know you can treat Houdini the exact same way, but it draws no separation between what a guide is and what a hair is. Like, you can convert them back and forth if you need to. So if you want to add a noise modifier to your guides, or a noise node or scraggle node to your guides, you can do that, and that is such a nice feature. So you can basically just do relatively straight guides. And obviously if you're doing VFX level stuff, then you don't want to do that. You want to make sure your guides are perfectly controlled. But if you just need like a general flowy shape, you could do straight guides and add a scraggle to those guides, then convert them back. And I really like that workflow. Let's turn on base surface normal so I can't backface select stuff. I used to go to, I went to a stream. I only have XGen, hoping to get the best quality like Yeti. I'm going for quality. Can XGen give the same results as Yeti? Oh, XGen can give plenty of results. I never, whenever someone says like, oh, this groom tool can't do shit, I always ignore them, because it's the artist, it's not the tool. Granted, if you're trying to do a bird, then yeah, probably worth switching. But if you're just doing a groom, XGen is fine. People who say, oh, XGen's not good enough, or oh, Yeti's not good enough, or all that sort of stuff, it tend to be a bit full of shit. Like, I mean, the best example I can give is, what was his name as well? I'm forgetting names so badly today. But there's a groom artist, or a modeling guy, who a couple of years ago he did a bunch of like Lord of the Rings characters, like really nice digidoubles, and the grooms are fucking incredible. He used N hair and paint effects, like, and the grooms look like genuinely VFX quality to like most people's eyes. Obviously, put them in a perfect shot and it might not be exactly where they need to be, but they're so fucking close, and it's using N hair. And ultimately, the industry used N hair for a while, so, well, not N hair, paint effects. So the tool can give you whatever you need from it, as long as you know how to use it, you know. Hey, Thierry. So as I was mentioning earlier about artists to follow if you want to learn about Yeti, and as I said, not me. The guy who just commented to Yuri Delic, that's him. I recommend checking out his channel. I know I've shouted him out before in other streams when I wasn't using Yeti, but now that I'm using Yeti, for the love of God, check out his stuff. He's really good. And also, thanks for your advice the other night, mate, when I was asking you some questions. Very much appreciated. There's some general waviness to these guides. I feel like obey surface normal doesn't always act the way that you want it to. There's probably a threshold setting somewhere, but yeah. I've missed a few messages. I can track the model and texturing. That's a bit of everything. Sorry, just reading through the messages. I'm really bad at reading out loud. Yeah, as S-Cream says, the quality won't change between groom tools. It's just, you know, how much time you spend on it. Obviously, there are. I'm trying to remember. I really can't remember the name. Yuri, maybe you'll remember it. There was an artist who did a bunch of N-hair grooms based on Lord of the Rings characters a couple of years ago. He worked at Weta. Now I think he's at Scanline. His stuff was ridiculous, like absolutely insane, and it's using N-hair. At least from what I remember. I remember him posting about it, and me just like, I think this is before I got into industry, so it's at least 4 years ago now. Because I joined industry in July 2017, and been fortunate enough to not leave it since. Although there are days where I'm just like, why do I do this to myself? Granted, Blue Zoo's been pretty sweet. Can't complain about Blue Zoo.
But yeah, oh, what was his name? It begins with an F, I think. I'm probably wrong in that too. Mike, how do you use Yeti F direction? What kind of way do you mean? Just in terms of like how the tool is, or like how to adapt to it, or just how, you know, why would I go from Action to Yeti? Oh, sorry, man. I can slow down how I speak. That's no problem. We're going to need a bit of length variation here. So... yeah, Yeti seems like a pretty nice tool. It's just a few weird things with it. Like, I'm not entirely convinced by its clumping system. I don't really enjoy the way that clump noises act. Like, if you do stray clumps, I've not figured out a way yet to maintain the clump shape on the strays without it getting all distorted. Like, I'm sure there's a trick you can do, but I'm not really familiar enough with Yeti yet to really know how to abuse it to do what I need. I mean, I feel like the groom sculpting tool is okay. It's not as good as XGen, but it is good enough to work. I found that changing the segment count on the guide helps a lot, because when I set, like, if I set the segment to like 20 or whatever the default is, the groom tools are awful. Like, I mean, this is still acting pretty well actually, but I just find it tries to conserve length too much. Like, you get all this stuff, and I hate that. But if I resample it down to like 6, it acts the way that I'm used to with XGen. It actually does act in a pretty similar way. It's still not as nice, but obviously you can just do your guides in XGen if you really want to, and then bring them back. Although again, still not sure on the pipelines for a lot of this stuff. Curl the tip of that up. Let's pick a side. Let's have it fall forward. Yeah, this is the sort of stuff that annoys me. If I turn off obey surface normal, it acts the way I want it to. But then I have to turn it back on for when I'm selecting stuff, because otherwise I select all the wrong shit. How does adding groom to a character work? Do you need to texture the character before, or is anything... So the groom doesn't really... try to press F9. F9? Alright, I'm just going to save before I do that. Oh, this thing. Yeah, this is, like... I'm still not really too keen on this, to be honest. I mean, it could work for some of these hanging hairs, but it's not really to my taste. Like, it's not really the way that I prefer to work, but it works fine. So let's just correct that. Yeah, I definitely prefer, in terms of the sculpting tools available within Yeti, I definitely prefer a low segment count hair with a base surface normal turned off. I find this is a lot easier to work with. It's a lot more similar to XGen than the single CV sculpting thing, which doesn't really convince me, to be honest. This hair feels really strange. Let's just deselect those. I also need to learn the shortcuts for like deselecting, because going over here constantly is tiring. Yeah, so how does adding groom to a character work? So basically, texturing is a separate process. The thing, it depends on the grooming system you're using. From what I can tell, Yeti seems pretty friendly to model updates. Like, compared to XGen, 100%. XGen's a fucking bitch. But yeah, Yeti seems pretty kind to model updates. But depending on the tool that you're using, generally you want to make sure that your model is finished before you start grooming. Or if you are going to be grooming an unfinished model, you want to make sure that at least the topology is stable, or at least the UVs are stable, so you have something to transfer with. Yeti, as far as I'm aware, is a world space based thing. So
You can use texture reference objects and stuff to like match objects up, but again, I might be wrong on some of this stuff. I am new to Yeti. I'm basically just like crash coursing myself. Like I've spent like 2 days watching all of the Intro to Yeti stuff by Mario, and like binge watching Yuri's channel as well. Trying to learn as much as I can about the workflow from people who actually know what they're doing. Because I'm very much an X-Gen boy. Granted, not as far as someone like Jesus. Like, I'm not sure, other than Houdini, I'm not sure he'd ever want to leave X-Gen. Whereas I'm a lot more kind of ready to leave X-Gen, because I'm sick and tired of its pipeline. And I think if this project turns out well with Yeti, I'll probably stick to Yeti.
You guys should try Allnatrix. It's a lot easier, fast, quite stable compared to X-Gen. Render quality is great with V-Ray for my
Max. Yeah, Allnatrix looks great. I like the feature that they just added with like texturable hair. Like you can actually paint the CVs of the hair. That's quite a cool feature. I wouldn't use it for actual texturing because that sounds like an awful workflow to me. But it looks like it would be good for painting maps. So if you want to do like emission effects, like very specific shots, it could be quite good for that. Although actually texturing hair in 3D is, at least in my opinion, an awful idea. That's just not how hair is. Like, it moves constantly. So if you're painting it in 3D, unless you've got it set to some kind of neutral hair pose, you're going to end up with really weird results when it actually flows around and simulates. But that said, you know, to each their own. If people want that workflow, they can use it. It's just not for me. It's one of those features that I think appeals most to people who aren't overly familiar with the grooming pipeline or like hair look dev. Granted, there'll be a ton of people who know way more than me that are calling me out on my bullshit right now. Let's curl this guy a little bit. Let's give it a little bit of kind of tension. Although that doesn't, it's a little bit too strong. There we go. Yeah, I think I'll get to like a certain point with this area, then I'll start blocking out the clumps and all that stuff. Actually, in Yeti, it doesn't care about quality geo because you can easily transfer the groom and Yeti tree to another geo. Yeah, that's the thing I love about Yeti is like the pipeline seems genuinely really nice, which is something coming from X-Gen. A nice clean pipeline is porn to me. Nothing gets me going quite as well as a clean groom pipeline. Is the dumbest sentence I've said in a while. But yeah, it does seem quite nice. Which is one of the reasons I'm using it for this project, because I'm still not entirely set on how I'm going to approach the body for this guy or the hair for this guy. And Yeti does free me up quite a bit. Although, I really don't like the clumping brush. I fucking hate that shit. The way it works is just nonsensical. And I think that the thing that will always piss me off with Yeti, even though you only really have to do it once until you update, is the install process. Like, the fact it's so fucking awkward. I know once you know it, it's easy enough, but it took me like 5 hours, 4 hours maybe, to get it working on my PC. So it's just like, I know there's apparently some technical reason why they haven't got it, but I really just wish it'd fix it. Like, having an installer is it just feels like program 101, right? I think Redshift probably has the best install process I've ever seen, because you don't even have to tell it where to go. It just finds your Maya. It's so nice for that. I never use Clumpbush. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's pretty bad. That said, the clumping guides is something that I never really do anyway. Like, I flow them together, sure, but clumping them together doesn't really make much sense. There's so much information to learn about different skills. Sometimes it's hard to know where to choose best things from professionals. Any recommendations? I mean, if you want to learn about X-Gen grooming, I've got a course coming out soon. There's some promotion. I'm working with the guys at Flip Normals to do a beginner's intro to X-Gen, going through not the full pipeline. It's not covering pipeline really at all. It's covering purely the grooming process. So it's not going over simulation, animation, anything like that. But you know, I'm working hard to make it something that isn't the same as every tutorial out there. That said, ignoring that one, I'd say the best resource at the moment for XGen is probably Jesus Fernandez's Patreon, or Jesus FC. His Patreon is really good for people who want to kind of get into XGen because it covers so much. He's definitely shifted more towards Houdini. But yeah, his Patreon is pretty reasonable. I'm his friend, so obviously some people are going to think I'm biased, but it really is a good resource. Like, he's spent years building it up, and if you buy 1 month of access, you can like binge watch a bunch of his tutorials on the full pipeline. And he's got another tutorial series which is going to be fucking massive, and I think that's coming out next year. But that one is like a complete like 0 to 100 guide of XGen and pipeline. Something like that. Have it pass over these guys. Slowly working my way through all these guides. You're next. I may need some more guides in the end, but block it out at low density, and then I can always add. More guides and kind of conform them to the ones I've already done. Jesus FC. C for car or Charlie. That's the correct phonetic alphabet.
Haha, just noticed that I actually following you on Facebook too.
Was that aimed at me, or was that aimed at someone else in the chat? If so, it's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, welcome to the stream.
I think this is one of the first times I may have seen you on the stream before, Creams. But I kind of struggle to remember any kind of name, including usernames. But if this is your first time on the streams, welcome. I hope you're enjoying it so far, even though I'm just talking shit. If you have any questions about grooming or XGen or general life, by all means ask. And I'll try not to be incompetent when I answer them. Although I can't promise I won't be incompetent, to be honest. I wonder how many times I can cram honest into one sentence. You.
You, Michael, just know how small our industry is.
Yeah, it's tiny.
If you don't mind saying,
who are you? Like, what's your actual name? Are you someone that I know, have met, or are you someone that I just have online? Also, if you're following me on Facebook, and I've not actually added you, just let me know, because I don't keep up with friends requests on Facebook. So like I've slowly got a follow account building, but it's just because I haven't got around to accepting friends requests yet. So yeah, by all means, just let me know and I can accept it. If you ever want to chat, just drop me a message.
I just have you online.
I'll add you at some point then. And we can chat if you ever want to. Let's go with this guy. There we go, something like that. Also, let me know if there's any issues with audio levels and stuff like that, because I'm trying to find a better way to set up my microphone. Although I am moving house in like,
what, 6-7 weeks? Hey Ian, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I am moving house in like 6 or 7 weeks, so there'll be like, granted it's over Christmas, I wouldn't be streaming over Christmas anyway, but there will be probably a 2-3 week break while I get a new computer set up. Well, not a new computer, but like get my new setup done. And we're moving to obviously a bigger place because I'm moving to Northern Ireland, so the house prices over there are a fair bit cheaper than London, it's fair to say. So we'll actually have somewhere with a spare room to work in, because currently I'm in the living room / bedroom because we live in the studio. Becca's currently at home with her parents for the next like week or so. Well, next week and a half. So I've got the place myself, but normally you can hear her like having a shower in the background. It's not ideal. It's a pretty small place. Really nice house. I do quite like where we live, but it's just so expensive. Like we're paying like $1,350 a month for the rent, plus money for broadband and insurance. It's just like so much fucking money. Whereas we could spend half that and have like a 3-bedroom house rather than a 1-bedroom studio. This is my first time on your live, even though I have spent a night watching your latest stream. I had to, like 31 part, I think. Very useful. You shared a free masterclass. I wouldn't call it a masterclass. That would imply that I've mastered something. But I appreciate the gesture. But yeah, is the move? Is it permanent? You moving out of London? Yeah, I'm moving out of London. As far as I'm aware, it's at very least long term. I don't think I'll be coming back for a very long time. And granted, I'm going to fly back every 6 or 7 weeks just to kind of say hello to people. Because the amount of money I'll be saving on rent, I'll be able to afford the flights just to, you know, go to the pub on Friday once everything returns to normal. Because I do miss pub Fridays. We used to go to, like, if you live in, I'm pretty sure you live in London as well, right, Angel? So you might know of the Clackham in Soho or near Oxford Circus. Basically, like a load of VFX artists go there, and I kind of miss seeing people there. But granted, you know, the whole global pandemic thing is kind of put a damper on that. It's such a shame to leave NPC during COVID, because normally we do like a, you know, really cool like leaving drinks and all that sort of stuff. But when it came to me leaving, it was just like just left. Like, we couldn't really do anything. It was such a shame. But yeah, but as far as I'm aware, I'm moving permanently. If I do come back, it will be not overly willingly. I'd rather, you know, stay out of London just because of the price. It's really not worth the money to live in London. At least, you know, after a few years, like the first couple of years I lived in London. Well, I say first couple of years, I'm still in my first couple of years. But like the first year or two I lived in London, I loved it, and I still do like it. It's a cool city, but it's not worth the money, because like the stuff I like about London, like, oh, there's so much you can do, yeah, but after a year of being here, I do the same 3 things. You know, it's I don't use the variety that London gives you, so what's the point in paying a premium for it? And now that we don't have to live in London to actually have the job, at least for my specific role and my specific company, I don't know if they're rolling out remote work for everyone long term, because I haven't asked, to be honest, but at least for my current position, I'm able to work permanently remotely if I want to. So it's time for me and Becca to get out of the city, and we're looking forward to it. Start a new life out in a place where we can actually afford and actually be able to make use of, you know, a salary. Yeah, Soho pubs are the fucking best. Like I like the Clackham. It's not the best pub, but it had the best people. I do miss it. Like we had such good vibes there. Like NPC, like when NPC was at its peak, like, you know, back when we were doing, not NDA information, but like when we were doing like some pretty big films and we were a big studio, we got to do like some really fucking cool stuff. Obviously now with COVID, like every studio's been hit, so you don't really have the same numbers of people anywhere, to be honest. But yeah, we used to do quite a lot of Fridays there. I think every Friday, to be honest, for a while at least. And if someone's leaving, then it was always, you know, pub straight away, either the Ship or Clackham. Normally Clackham, to the point where it became a meme. I'm very aware that I'm literally going to be doing the same thing for this whole stream. London is oddly expensive. Got a scholarship, but refused it. It's really expensive compared to other similarly developed places. Yeah, London is just so fucking pricey. Like, I'm genuinely waiting for there to be a complete like property bubble crash. Like, London is way too expensive. There's no way that the actual property worth, like the place I'm living in right now, I'm pretty sure it's valued at like £800,000, maybe even closer to $1 million. That's stupid money for a 1-bedroom studio. Like, stupid money. And you know, credit to my landlord for being able to fucking afford that shit, but I can't, and I want to eventually own a house. I don't want to be renting until I'm old, you know.
And London is a place where if you live here, unless you earn stupid money, you are renting or you are commuting 2 hours a day each way, and that is not a life that I want. Generally speaking, when I approach basically anything life choice wise, I always go for whichever one's the least stressful, and I can't imagine anything more stressful than commuting 4 hours a day. Like, it just sounds like such a huge waste of my life. You already spend 8 hours a day sleeping. Like, why would you want to lose more of your life to sitting on a tube? Anyway, that's my London rant over. I know I'm not alone on the way I think about that. Like, it's stupid. I think the sooner the VFX industry abandons London, the healthier for its workers. I am counting the days until the industry as a whole allows remote work. I think clients were the biggest pushback on it because of security. But as far as I'm aware, there's actually been less data breaches now than there was when everyone was in the studio, which is weird because I didn't expect that. But I've not heard of any data breaches this year, like literally none from any studio that I know people in. Granted, it's not sort of information people just willingly shout about, but you would have heard something, and yeah, nothing. I was wondering places I've applied for if they're permanently moving remotely. Yeah, it's really interesting to see what different studios will do, to be honest. I think studios that are more people focused will ideally move to remote work. Studios that are more client focused probably won't. But that's not to say one is better than the other, because working remotely, yeah, sure, I can live in a place that's bigger and afford it and save a bunch of money each month, so I can do more holidays, I can buy more guitars, which is probably where most of my money will go. I can do all that stuff, sure, but I'll miss out on the team dynamic that you get from being in a studio. Because no matter how tight-knit a team is, when you're working remotely, you're not seeing their faces. It just doesn't feel the same. And the team I'm with at Blue Zoo is fucking fantastic for it. Like, they're genuinely a really fun team. I've been quite fortunate, actually, because NPC Groom was an amazing team. They were absolutely a joy to work for, and I'd happily do it again. Granted, I'm not going to leave Blue Zoo anytime soon, but if I was given the same situation before I'd left NPC, it would have been fucking amazing. I wouldn't have left. And then I go to Blue Zoo and the team is amazing there too, and I've not had any real drama anywhere I've gone. Like, I've been very lucky in this industry. I know that there are departments out there that you don't want to work for. I'm not going to name any because that would be really rude of me and also damning, so I'm not going to do that. But everyone knows some studios you don't want to work for, or some departments you don't want to work for. They just don't have the right vibe with their staff. Let's go with you. Wonder how many bridges I'm setting on fire in this chat. Come on, there we go. I need to turn off a face normal. Got that eventually. I'm studying engineering. Oh, that's so cool, man. But currently working whatever CGI nonsense I can get asked to do. Planning to actually do CG as a full-time job. Hearing London is quite good to work. Is it worth traveling? London is pretty good. That's the thing. Like, I'm talking a bunch of shit about it, but like, it is a good city to work in. It's just I wouldn't plan a long-term life here. I'd plan a career here, sure, but now I've been given the option to work for a London studio, but from not London, I'm taking that. Like, I've got no reason to keep it. And if I end up hating remote, then I'll go back to London. But I've been working remote now since. In a one-room apartment since a one-room studio since March, so I can deal with the isolation. That's not a problem for me. I'm already antisocial as it is, I used to be so much more social than I am now. Makes me sad sometimes. Is there a way for junior artists to get a hint as to what studios not to work for? Just ask around. Yeah, I mean, it's not stuff that I talk about publicly. To be honest, it's not really stuff I'd want to talk about privately either. It's one of those things where it's... Go on websites like Glassdoor. Glassdoor is probably the best insight you can get publicly. Of course, you will always get people talking shit about every studio. Like, if you go into the Reddit VFX thing, like, you get a ton of shit about NPC.
I will say happily publicly that I really enjoyed my time at NPC. I don't think that, well, for me, I didn't have any issues there. I was treated very fairly all the time. They were very transparent with what was going on. The only reason I left is just because I had better job prospects at another studio. But that's just the nature of the job. It's not, being mistreated. So I was always treated very well. So I'm not going to talk any shit about NPC. But they do get a lot of shit on like VFX, Reddit VFX pages. But my personal opinion is NPC is a good company to work for. So, other than that, I've never worked at another VFX house, so I can't talk from any personal experience, and therefore I'm not willing to make any kind of public, statement on anything according to other studios, because that would just be unfair of me, on the staff that work there, on the company's reputation. Granted, no one fucking watches these streams. There's like 8 of you right now. I can't harm a company's reputation. That'd be massively egotistical to think I could. But I don't want to go into that water. I don't want to talk about studios that I haven't worked for, because it strikes me as very unfair and unprofessional. But there are definitely studios that you hear stories from. One studio actually. So on the flip side, I'm happy to talk about what studios I've heard good stuff about. Framestore, I've not really heard anything bad from them. Like, they seem really, really nice. They pay very well, and the tools are really good. Like, they seem like they're pretty good. I'm sure there's a bunch of people from Framestore that are like, no, I hate it, but you get that at every studio. Doesn't matter where you go. And every studio will have the people who are treated well and the people who aren't treated well. That's just, again, nature of the industry. Classically, I think it's comp that get fucked over the most frequently, but that's just the nature of being at the end of the pipeline. That's not how it should be, but that's just how it ends up being. But yeah. But I think in terms of places you can look for to find out what studios are good to work for, ask people privately on Facebook. But generally speaking, Reddit, VFX, or Glassdoor are going to be a place to check. But again, remember that normally the most vocal people are the people that were fucked over most. So if you see like a ton of negative stuff, if there's like 40 posts saying, oh, XYZ company is really awful and never work for them, that's 40 people, sure, but they probably have like 1,000 employees who are all being treated amazingly. Those ones get really unfortunate. So do keep that in the back of your mind as well. Like, a bad review isn't necessarily a bad place to go to. I mean, there's a whole joke about like Yelp reviews, right? Like, sometimes you get bad Yelp reviews in places that haven't even opened yet. You can get the exact same thing on professional studios. But yeah, I'm treading very carefully on this topic though. I don't think it's good to talk too much about studio life publicly. I'm happy to talk about good experiences. I'm happy to talk occasionally about bad experiences if it doesn't cross client territory, which most bad experiences do cross client territory. So that says something in and of itself, I guess. But obviously naming shows and naming clients would be the worst thing you could do, and again is disrespectful as a person, not just a professional, so I'm not going to go down that route either. Granted, every VFX artist talks shit at some point. We all do. The job has burned all of us at some point. It's just a case of how you got burned and why you got burned. Comp does sound stressful. Yep, 100%. I've got a job offer a while ago, starting a local starting company who wanted to offer me software and hardware crazy. Paid $13K a month. Jesus. Oh, a year. Jesus. All right. 13K a month. I was like, take it. Doesn't matter what the job is. Take that shit and retire in a year. 13K a year. Yeah, that's the thing. Some studios do pay very low. Normally small startups. Bigger studios tend to pay better. Again, there's range within that, but yeah, 13K a year. That's below minimum wage in the UK, I think. London tends to pay more just because it's more expensive to live here. Like, the salaries in London are higher than other parts of the country, so that is something to consider. I'm obviously I'm not going to talk about my salary now because, again, you don't talk about your salary. It comes across as either bragging or complaining depending on where you sit in the spectrum. But I'm happy to say what I started on, which is 25K. That was like my first job in the industry was 25, but that's because at the time groom was a very rare skill to have. And I think being transparent about what people earn is helpful. It's just you should be transparent about what you currently earn publicly, because that can get into muddy water. But
like I started on 25. That wasn't unusual for Groom at the time when I started, because again, Groom was a very rare skill set back then. It's a lot more common now because there's a lot more tutorials from people who actually know what they're doing, like Jesus, like Yori, like a million others, Mario, Antipus. There's a long list. But yeah, Groom is getting a lot more common now, so I think the starting salaries are kind of getting lower, I imagine. Because normally you find salary is based on how common the skill is rather than how difficult the skill is. Because obviously if there's like 10 Groom artists in the world, they're going to be harder to find and therefore worth more than if there's a million modelers. And modeling is the most common department as far as I'm aware, followed relatively closely by animation, I think. I don't know what the most common ones are. I'd definitely say modeling is the most common, because it's the thing that everyone does. Like, no matter what department you're in, you probably made your own models at some point. It's a very common skill set. Not to diss on that at all, because the people who are in the industry are better modelers than I can ever dream of being. There's nothing wrong with it being a common skill set. It just means that the pay is different. It's a French studio. French studio for 13k a year. That's pretty low. Again, it's a startup, so it's naturally going to be low. If I was starting a company, I wouldn't be able to pay people 40k. I mean, I don't really earn enough to pay people. Like, if I need freelance, I'll obviously reach out to people and pay. I hate people doing free work for me, because I don't accept free work myself, so why would I want other people to do it for me? But because of that, I very rarely go to people, because I don't want to, if I approach someone for freelance, I want to make sure they're paid fairly. Last thing I want to do is rip someone off, especially if they're doing the same kind of job I do. It just feels wrong. But yeah, I guess that's like a really interesting topic actually, is like when friends ask you for freelance, if it's genuinely in a professional kind of capacity, do you charge your normal rates? Like, so I normally, and it's a bad practice, I normally charge a massively reduced rate for people that I know, which is not necessarily good to do, because it means I'm going to get fucked over eventually. Not intentionally, it will never be intentionally, friends don't do that to each other, but it's a difficult area. I will very slowly get through this. I've missed so many guides. That was my struggle. Started in tracking, and trying to get into modeling is really hard. Yeah, modeling, there's so many people who there's so many people who do modeling. Like, you're competing with some of the absolute best, because there's so many people. You have to go against the best people. There's no choice. Whereas in a smaller things like Groom, again, when I started in Groom, I think I'd done like 5 Grooms, and looking back, I did not know what I was doing. I was purely faking it. They just trusted me, and luckily that trust paid off. I did relatively well. I didn't, I'm nowhere near the level of people who really know what they're doing. I'm not anything close to like Franchino is probably the best example of a groomer who probably undervalues himself. He's insane. If he ever watches this, hi Franchino, your work scares me. And then there's people, again, like, I won't mention their full names because they're not overly public people with their work, but like, I know a guy called Tony. He's ridiculous, and he's another one I think doesn't realize how good he is. There's Dave, who is, again, doesn't realize how good he is. He's scary good. And yeah, there's a ton of people like that. Bavika. Oh, actually, side note, a friend of mine who I used to work with recently made a Gnomon course on stylized X-Gen hair, which might be worth looking into. Bavika, is it Bajpai? I never actually asked her how to pronounce her surname, which is pretty bad of me as a friend, but Bavika, she's one of those people who massively you don't realize how good she is because she doesn't talk about it, which is a really nice trait, because I talk way too much about my work. Well, I don't anymore. I definitely used to. It's definitely given me a reputation with a few people that I don't want to have, but hey ho, that's where we are. But she is on the opposite end of that spectrum. Like, you don't realize how fucking amazingly talented she is until she talks to you and you're just like, oh fuck, how did you even do that? I need to read the chat. Can you explain the duties of flame artists? I hear they're the highest paid in VFX. I don't know if they're the highest paid.
And to be honest, I don't know much about Flame. I know that it's a comp software that is incredibly fast and incredibly rare. It's massively GPU accelerated, I think. So if you need a unbelievably quick comp to throw stuff together, it might be one of the best softwares out there, because Nuke can be quite slow, relatively speaking. It's still, I love Nuke. Nuke is my go-to. If it wasn't for their absolutely shit indie version, I'd have bought it by now. But their prices are way too fucking high for like basically all the Foundry stuff. I love the Foundry stuff, but they're priced too high, and I don't like subscription models. I hate subscription. I know I'm paying it for Maya, but Maya's an essential tool. Like, I don't have a choice on that. And before any Blender fanboys jump in and say, oh, Blender's free, fuck off. I don't care. I know Blender's free. I know it's a good tool, but it's not the tool I am using. Let's get that in place. Been tracking for over 3 years now. I don't mind it. Tracking is a really cool job. I think tracking is a pretty rare skill as well, to be honest. I don't know why it's rare. I definitely don't know how to do it. I don't know the first step, but I know that PF track is pretty popular. I know that Nuke has some okay tracking tools, but that's where my knowledge stops. I guess that's an area that'd be worth me looking into at some point, because I do want to do like an actual comp, not a comp project, because I don't have any comp software that isn't open source, but like a proper record a video or take a photo and integrate something. That'd be quite fun to do in a live stream, I think. Well, a live stream series. A single live stream is nowhere near long enough. I'm not that talented. Flame is very, very rare. I haven't seen anyone use anything other than Nuke. Yeah, Flame is insanely rare, but because of that, the whole thing of if it's a rare skill, it's valuable. That's your prime example. I don't think I've ever personally met someone who uses Flame. Like, I know people who use Flame, but I don't think I've ever met someone who uses Flame, and that's pretty big considering I worked at NPC for 2.5, 3 years. I think it was 3 years actually. Yeah, 3 years and 2 months or something before I left NPC. And I don't think I ever met a Flame artist. I probably did without realizing. I'm sure there's a few of them that know it. But yeah, definitely a rare skill. Rare skills are king in this industry, which is why things like Groom are still relatively sought after. A lot of studios still don't really have, like VFX studios at this point, they've all caught on, they've all got Groom artists, because Groom is such a unique skill set. Not that it's rare anymore, there's a lot more people that do it now, but it's still like, you'd be surprised how many issues can be solved by Groom. And generally speaking, quite a lot of Groom artists have a generalist skill set. It's just part of what we do. Like, most of us can model, at least to some extent. Most of us can look dev to some extent. It's rare to get a groomer who can only groom. Because in my case, I'm a failed modeler. I'm someone who wanted to do modeling and ended up in Groom, and then just kind of never got around to modeling. I've ended up in look dev now, which is still Groom based as well. Modeling was kind of my dream job, and still is to some extent. I'd love to get a job where I can do all of them. Like my absolute dream of a job, and I do really want to speak to BlueZoo about this. I don't know if it's the sort of job that would be helpful at a company like BlueZoo, but my absolute dream of a job is like a principal character artist, where, and I'm not saying I'll ever get this because I don't think I'm good enough for it, frankly. Like, at least for a company level, I can do my own stuff, sure, but that's where it ends. But yeah, the dream for me is like, this client wants to see what this would look like. We need an artist and 3 weeks of their time to get a full character out with Groom, look dev, texturing, modeling. Just proof of concept, like rapid concepting with a not production ready, but like pitch type work. Really, I love the idea of being able to just be like given a concept art and not being told how to do it, not being led by anyone other than client, like just being able to just do it. That is my absolute dream. I enjoy working in teams, but I really, really enjoy doing a bit of everything in the pipeline. I don't like just doing one thing. I get really bored if I just do one thing, which is why I do personal projects, because ultimately almost every job in VFX and animation is you do one thing. And that's just not who I am as an artist. I'm definitely a lot more like, let me get involved in everything. Not micromanaging type guy, but oh shit. Oh, why are they colored differently? Let's get that selected. Edit Groom. Cool. Sculpt tool. I don't know why it goes to the smooth tool every time. Needs to catch up on some messages. I never thought if someone would love seeing that
there's so much into tracking. It's insane. No, it's really like I genuinely. This is why like I really do want to learn a bit of everything, because I genuinely find enjoyment in every part of the pipeline. Like I really genuinely do, and I'm not saying that because I want to look cool or something. I just genuinely enjoy every part of the pipeline, except animation. Fuck animation, I'm really bad at it, and I guess rigging too. But I want to get good at rigging at some point. I want to really learn it, because I find riggers are normally the smartest people in the room, and just being a little bit like them would be really fucking cool. Like every time I've had a technical issue, a rigger has known how to fix it, and it's just like, why aren't I like you? why do I not have this forbidden knowledge? But yeah, like animation is something I wanted to be for years. Like my first 2 years of learning Maya, well, my first 2 full-time years of learning Maya, because I didn't actually realize until quite recently, I actually started doing my first animations in like 2008. But I actually forgot completely until relatively recently that I was doing that. I used to use Endorphin, which is like a free version of Euphoria, which is the physics engine Rockstar use for their character animation. Like when you shoot someone in the arm, they grab their arm dynamically, all that stuff. That's what I used to use. But I started like full-time learning Maya in 2012, and I really wanted to be an animator. I spent a lot of time. I did some stuff for the 11-second club. I never really submitted anything because I was shit. And I tried to do animation again for a couple of years after that, and eventually just gave up, wanted to be a modeler. So animation is a skill set I don't think I'll ever have. I just don't think it's something I can understand. I can look at animation and know what's wrong with it, but when I'm doing it myself, I don't have the skills that animators have. Animators are people that I look up to massively. Like, I cannot get an animation to look nice. The fact they can do that really impresses me. Breathing life into a character like that is just so fucking cool. Michael, your intro to the X-Gen talk was a godsend for me a few years back when I began to become X-Gen. That's really great, man. I'm glad you found it helpful. I really need to update that series. I've been debating kind of rewriting it for a while and updating the images, but it's just so much work. It took me I think it was 5 months to write that tutorial, because I was, I started writing it just before I left university, and I finished writing it like 4 months into my job at NPC. Which is why if you go to the bottom of the page, there's a bunch of NPC artist quotes, because I was just like, guys, can you help? I don't know what I'm doing. And got some quotes from like people who worked there at the time. I personally like to do everything. It's really cool, except rigging and animating. But I'm less horrible in look dev and environments. Yeah, it's like animating and rigging. I always find animating and rigging are probably the most specific skill sets. Like grooming, there's a lot of crossover into modeling. Like the general approach is, your ultimate, like, the thing that guides what you do is form. It's entirely form. So, most of the time modelers can groom. Like, you can get some incredible groom artists that are actually just modelers who happen to go into groom and immediately be good at it. Those people frustrate me to no end, because I spend years, specifically learning groom, and then, you got people like Marlon Nunes, is it? Who just, like, comes along and does a Aquaman groom, and it looks amazing, and he's just a modeler, but he does amazing groom stuff. Normally you get people who can do all that stuff, whereas rigging, I feel like you're only good at rigging if you're actually a rigger. There's just not enough crossover in other departments. Like, there's technical people who will understand rigging, but it's just such a different mindset to working. And again, like, riggers are normally the smartest people. The smartest people I've ever met are riggers. With the exception of one. In fact, no, he was a rigger too. No, fuck. Yeah, all the smartest people I've met in the industry are riggers. Or at very least know how to rig very, very well. I think it's just part of the skill set. Like, riggers just have to be incredibly smart. Some of the issues I've had solved in really stupid ways by riggers have always made me laugh. Biggest X-Gen hurdle for me was learning to work with how finicky X-Gen is. Yeah, X-Gen is a nightmare. Mike, try using Groom Sim feature to sculpt skull instead of hand sculpting. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. It's a bit late on now. I just kind of want to get something wavy to it. I'm very used to sculpting stuff, but I guess I can save. Okay, let's see if we can figure out how to do this. So I'm going to need to go to the first frame, which is 990. Let's select a U. Simulation. Oh, I already had to open. Simulation. Start frame is 990. Frames Dynamic properties. Alright, let me just try default settings. I need to add a collider, don't I? How do I add a collider? Collision objects. Add objects. I'm guessing I add the shape node. Need some more iterations. That's actually surprisingly quick simulation. Damping iterations is set that's like 3. Probably goes. Probably should go higher than that. Rest influence. Don't want that yet. Stiffness. Let's add a little bit more stiffness. So let's go 0.75. I'm gonna increase those iterations as well. Let's go to like 10. I don't know what numbers are the correct numbers for Yeti. Why are they dancing about so much? It's the stiffness that's doing it. But why is it doing it? Is there a way to change the collision thing? I guess it would be in the object properties, right? Let's grab U. Do you have Yeti properties? You do. Yeti attributes, collision friction, collision offset. Yeah, there we go. So let's increase that friction a bit. I love it. I think I'll go with hand sculpting until I can learn simulation. But it's a good suggestion though, thank you. That's so funny. Let's set that back to 0. Go to U. And do that. Turn off collisions, turn off simulation, close that. By the way, did anyone check the tool that Jesus Fernandez is making? Creates automatic grim. Yeah, he was chatting to me about it the other night. I haven't personally used it because I don't have Houdini, so I can't really say how it's working, what it's doing. But it seems like a pretty cool idea. It saves the first like couple hours of blocking, because one thing is like in industry, like a block like that will take about 4 hours, 5 hours. So saving that initial time, that is the most repetitive work that you do as an artist, is pretty nice. And then obviously, like as far as I'm aware, he's made it so it's customizable, like completely customizable afterwards. It just outputs basically the same way we block it, which is a really nice feature. But I haven't really seen how it works. I haven't seen him actually use it. So I have no idea like if it's something I would personally use, because I quite like doing things manually. At least for personal projects, I like to do stuff manually. For work, you know, at the end of the day, time is money in work, and I don't want to waste clients' money. So if there's stuff I can do to speed up my workflow, then I'll take it at work. But in personal work, I like doing things myself and manually. It means things take forever, but I'm fine with things taking forever because there's no money riding on it. It's just my free time, and I enjoy doing this, so I'm happy to use my free time on it. But yeah. Yeah, it'd be cool to chat with Jesus about that. That's it, I do need to meet up with him soon, because I'm leaving the UK and he's leaving London. He's going to Vancouver pretty soon, I think, now. He's got his visa confirmed at last. He did post about it publicly, so I can't chat about it. But yeah, he's recently got his visa confirmed, so he'll actually be leaving the UK. Because we've actually had Jesus and I, like, for those who don't know, like me and Jesus are actually pretty close. We've been friends for quite a few years. He is probably the reason I'm in the industry, and I was one of the reasons he got into London. So we both got quite a lot of mutual respect for that, and we just get on quite well. We're not very similar people, but we do get on very well. So like it's you know it's great to have him as a friend. But what do we call it? With him leaving London soon, and with me leaving the UK soon as well, we've had like multiple like leaving drinks. Like, oh, I'm gonna miss you, mate. Like, let's go and have a drink at my house or whatever. Because obviously lockdown, can't really do much. But we've done it like 3 times now, and then we realised that either he's delayed leaving or I'm delayed leaving or whatever. Like it's so funny. But yeah, we actually need to have some leaving drinks soon. So I'll probably drop him a message after the stream, be like, yo, when are we doing this? Probably this weekend. But
and hopefully not the last leaving drinks we ever have together, but it'd be nice to keep in touch with him. We've definitely had quite big impacts, I think, on each other. At least I hope so. He's definitely had a pretty big impact on the way my life's gone. Even though he is a dick. And we get on really well, but we both call each other assholes all the time. Like, we're not, like, we're compatible people, but we don't know why. We say nice things about each other though, which is nice. We're occasionally supportive of each other. It's an odd friendship. I've never actually watched a tutorial about grooming, learned the whole tools from documents and actually trying out stuff. That's how I learned as well. Obviously, now when I try to learn software, I try to learn it quickly, so I do check out tutorials. And I think it's good to check out tutorials. Even when you know how to do something, it's good to still watch tutorials, because one thing that is an ever-present threat as an artist is getting really out of date. Because even, like, you might be like, oh, I know how to sculpt a head. Like, yeah, you probably do, and you can probably do it better than, like, complete new beginners. But someone's probably found a better workflow by now. So, you know, watch tutorials. You know, there's tutorials out there that are complete shit. Like, I don't like the amount of tutorials there are that are by people that don't know how to actually do the thing. Like, that is a really big pet peeve of mine. It's one of the reasons I don't make that many tutorials anymore. Because in the case of the XGen one, like, I didn't really fully understand it at the time that I made it, but I spoke to enough professionals to know that the information I put in that was correct. But there's quite a lot of people who make tutorials that don't know how to do it and don't check with people who do know how to do it, and that pisses me right off, because the amount of times I've, like, helped people out and they've got themselves into a horrible situation because they watch a shit tutorial, like, that fucking, it actually really annoys me. I feel like there's an obligation to, when you're making tutorials, an obligation to know that you're right, or to really spend the time to make sure you, like, point out the things that are important to know. That's why, like, this tutorial I'm doing for Flip Normals, guys, it's taken me fucking ages, because the amount of times I've re-recorded the same lesson over and over again, because I said one thing that might be, like, a little bit misleading or doesn't really convey the importance of something. I was like, no, I'm going to fucking re-record that, because the last thing I want to do is, you know, misguide a ton of people, because this is, you know, with it going to Flip Normals, it's going to have more of an audience than any of my stuff normally does. So the last thing I want is a bunch of people thinking, oh, this is really good, this is a great tutorial, and then having them be misled, and they think they know what they're doing because I've put this tutorial out, but actually I got it wrong. You know, I really want to avoid that. But the amount of tutorials that don't just annoys me. I'm rambling a lot about this. It's because it really genuinely pisses me off. I hate it when people make bad tutorials and then say, as if, like, oh, well, it's fine, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, why are you teaching? Like, there's so much stuff I want to do lessons on. Like, there's a lot of stuff I want to teach, but I'm so, like, scared of getting it wrong that I just end up not doing it. Like, you know, the iTutorial series that I'm going to work on, like, that I'm going to work on that very slowly, because I want to check with people who really know their shit and, like, make sure I'm getting it right. Because that, like, brief intro, something I stressed at the beginning of that is, like, this is just my workflow. I don't know if it's 100% right, because I want to be transparent. If I don't know if something is correct, I'm going to fucking say it, because I don't think I know everything. I don't want people to think that I know everything so that they take my word for gospel, because it isn't. Like, the way I do stuff is sometimes manually intensive. Like, the way I do eyebrows, like, one of the videos I did a while ago on, like, my workflow for eyebrows, I said multiple times, like, the way I do eyebrows is objectively not right. It's just, it works for me. But in industry, like, you know, I use way too many guide curves for eyebrows. It gets me the results I want, but if someone else has to pick up the groom, it's the worst for them. So I try to, like, minimize the amount I do that. Just sometimes I have to, because it gets me results. But yeah, anyway, I'm rambling now. I need to check chat. Do you suggest anything to take my skills to the next level? Just keep pushing yourself. It's newest head sculpt workflow, scan heads. Oh yeah, 100%. Starting from the scan though, like, I saw one thing that used to make me a bit annoyed. So you got like, there's an artist who you've probably all heard of, Sefki Ibrahim, who's, like, actually surprisingly new to CG considering how good he is. But he got a ton of shit for doing like, he hand sculpts everything now,
but one of his old digidoubles that he did was based on a head scan, and he got a bunch of comments being like, oh, it's based on a head scan, you basically didn't do the work yourself. It's like, do people realize how hard it is to make a sculpt based on a head scan? Like, head scans are never perfect, and even if they are close to perfect, there's so much that needs to change. Like, head scans just save you the blockout stage. There's nothing else to it. And I think it's one of those things that people who diss it really don't know what goes into it. Because, like, the only reason I know, and the only reason I'm not part of that group, is because one of my first digitals I ever did, I did using a head scan. I made my own head scan. It was shit, but that kind of showed me, okay, here's how much goes into fixing it, and it's a lot. Like, head scans require a ton of work. It's just not the same work that you used to. But yeah, in terms of so back to that original question, in terms of things to take your work to the next level, I just say push yourself out of your comfort zone, like, all the time. Like, don't be afraid of fucking up. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, as I said earlier, like, I'm streaming right now, and this is my first doing it professionally a little bit at the moment. But I've never done anything like this. I'm very new to Yeti as a whole, and this will probably be the first groom that I finish in Yeti. So I'm streaming this, and I frankly am, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just defaulting to my normal workflow of hand sculpting guides and that sort of stuff. And as you saw, like, when Yuri suggested simulation, I immediately was like, okay, I'll try it, because I don't know the best way to do this. It turns out I don't know how to simulate either. So just to get something out in today's stream and not have people sit watching me just try to fail at something, I may as well, I guess the main point of this stream is talking really to you guys, because there'll be a lot of people here that aren't normally watching my streams. Just because I have posted it, I don't normally post my streams anywhere over my own personal page. But yeah, like, what was I saying? I've completely sidetracked myself. Fuck. Oh yeah, just don't be afraid of fucking up, and don't be afraid of people seeing you fuck up. It's part of the process. If you hide your fuck ups too much, then you'll build a reputation for yourself that you don't want to have, which is you actually being able to do everything, because then you get expectations, and those expectations are way more pressure than they are worth. I've only ever experienced that once, where someone thought I really knew my shit, and it's like, I don't. Like, I really don't. So now I'm very transparent about that. Like, when I try new stuff, I'm like, please don't take what I do as the correct way to do stuff. If it happens to work, it's by fluke. I think it was like a week and a half ago I did some cloth simulation, and it was my first time in about 6 years doing cloth sim, and I was just fucking about the whole stream. I had no idea what I was doing. We're gonna need way more guides on top of this. So yeah, it's a concern of mine. Sometimes I worry about wasting time and then just talk. Don't get to the point. Sometimes I wonder if I should press buttons till I get it right. Yeah, there's no way to guarantee getting stuff right. Just fuck it. Like, don't care. Do something. When you do it wrong, you'll realize you've done it wrong. Then later on, you'll do it again, and you'll do it less wrong. Then you'll do it less wrong. Then you'll do it less wrong, and eventually you get it right. That's kind of my mindset to a lot of stuff now. Is I don't care if I fuck up, because I fucked up so many times. I've realized it's just part of the process. I don't think you should be scared of not doing stuff correctly. I wasted like 5 months when I first started doing stuff the wrong way, developed my own way. Yeah, that is the flip side to that coin, I guess. So I say, push yourself and do all this stuff. If you're new to it, don't try to develop your own way. There's a reason that there's standards for stuff. Like, the common one with grooming is people underestimate guides. They're just like, oh, well, the clumping is what does a lot of it, and the noise modifier makes it feel natural, so they just skip guides. But when you're a beginner, you might not realize how important good guides are. Like, I spend most of my time on guides. Like, a vast majority of my time grooming is on guides. And I'm relatively quick with guides. I'm definitely not the fastest out there, but I'm pretty quick at getting what I need with guide work. But even then, it takes fucking ages. But I don't skip it. I don't get bothered about it, because I actually quite enjoy guide grooming. But if you go into something brand new to it, you probably won't realize the bits that require the most attention. People underestimate guides a lot. They just throw something together. It's like, oh, that's vaguely the shape. It's like, yeah, well, what you're gonna get is vaguely the results. Like, you're not gonna get what you want. And that applies to like every aspect of every bit of pipeline. The key thing is to learn from people who know what they're doing. Don't one of my other reasons to hate bad beginner tutorials is beginners can't pick out what's good and what's bad. Like, if you can, that means it's really extremely bad, but sometimes it might be stuff that looks good but is bad workflow, and you won't be able to tell because you don't know any better, and that's part of it. Like, I was watching a bunch of cloth tutorials last week off stream because I don't know how to do cloth, and I had to do cloth. And I couldn't tell what was good and what was wrong. It's like the only way I could figure it out is through years of using Maya and just generally knowing like common issues within Maya. You know, things like, you know, topology, consistency, and that's not really a Maya issue, it's a different thing, but you know, I know the general pipeline for a lot of stuff just from being around professionals who actually know what they're doing. But yeah, like, just throw yourself at some tutorials, look for tutorials that have good results, and if you can, find someone who makes tutorials who actually is in the industry. And that's not to be elitist, like there are people outside of the industry that make amazing stuff, but you can't trust it 100% of the time. So I tend to recommend, you know, go with people who work at major studios, or go with people who are seniors or leads at smaller studios, because generally speaking, no matter the size of the studio, the seniors and leads know what they're doing. You know, learn from the people who you know have a track record, you know. If there's a guy who makes tutorials that, you know, they're quick and they get vaguely what you want, and you just want to learn the technical steps, then sure, anything will do, but avoid it as much as you can. Almost at a point where I've got all the guides blocked. I don't think this is good enough in terms of amount of guides. Like, this is awful. Like, I'd need a couple guides here just to kind of fill this gap and have the hair actually lie on top, but I think this will work well enough for me to block clumps. And then I'm going to have to spend a ton of time in this area. Oh, completely missed that guide. And then I guess we're just going to sculpt the hairs inside the box, just up vaguely. It's fair mind learning and knowing where to look. Yes, I guess that was just the topic I was just talking about. It's hard to know where to look. You learn over time. You learn from your fuck-ups, and you may spend a long time fucking up, but that's just part of it. Don't get too down on yourself if you do. Again, the people who are at the top are people who have fucked up more times than you've even tried. Like, it's just kind of the nature of it, and that's the same with any skill. Love Seth Ibrahim's work. Yeah, he's ridiculous. The fact that he started like 3 years ago blows my mind. Like, he's one of those people who gives me self-confidence issues. Like, I started so long ago, and there's a few people out there that hold my work in high regard, but it's like, I've been doing this for, you know, 8, almost 9 years. Then you got Sefki come along who can blow me out the fucking water, and his first industry job, like in VFX, was a senior, and he only started, I think he's a senior at ILM, and he started CG like 3 or 4 years ago. Like, how the fuck is he able to learn that quickly? He's so good. Like, maybe one day he'll see this stream. I doubt he will. I have spoken to him in the past, like he's reached out to me about groom questions before, but like, he's just so fucking good. There's a reason he's held in high regard despite how short of a time he's been doing it. Because 3 years in, my work was fucking shit. Like, really objectively bad. I have no idea how he got the results he did so quick. But I guess it's just, some people are just good. Like, there's the whole thing of like not believing in talent. Like, you know, ultimately hard work is what gets you where you want to go. But some people just are good. Like, they just take it on better. And that's not to say he's not working hard. He's working incredibly hard. Harder than most people even try. But he's also one of those people who just naturally, he gets it. Like, he just gets it. He can develop stuff so quickly. Yeah, as I said, I'm going to stop gushing over him now, but yeah, he's an incredibly good artist. Been doing a masterclass and the shittiest sculptor in the group. Wait, sorry, I need to reread that. Been doing a masterclass and I'm the shittiest sculptor in the group. The others are really talented. The teacher said, doesn't matter, show others and you can improve it. And he said, keep going, keep working. Yeah, don't worry about being the shittest in the group. Because the thing is, there'll be someone else who thinks they're the shittest in the group. There'll be someone else who you think is really good who thinks they're the shittest in the group. Of course, there'll also be the cocky people. Like, you know, I've said in the past that I used to have a bit of an ego problem. It's something I continue to kind of work with, because I don't want to be a guy with an ego, so I really do pull myself back. But it's something I've struggled with. And in uni, it got the better of me. Like, I definitely had an ego in uni, and I hate the fact I had an ego in uni. It's just the way my circumstances were just kind of put me in that place. But so there'll be people like that who are really confident in their work when they shouldn't be. But yeah, trust me when I say more people than you realize feel the same. Like there's people who I look up to who are like, oh, I have no idea how you do what you do. It's like, do you have any idea how much better than me you are at this? Like it's stupid. Like it's actually ridiculous how good some people get and then don't realize they are. So you're probably a lot better than you give yourself credit for. And even if you're not, you'll get where you want to go, because like I know you've been doing like I've seen your hard surface stuff. I remember the watch that you did. There's really fucking nice modeling, so you can model. You know what you're doing. It's just a case of learning. Okay, well, how do I go from hard surface to organic? And that is difficult because they are different skill sets. But you will get it eventually because your hard surface stuff proves that you have an understanding of form. It's just now a case of understanding organic form. And it's the same. It's the same 3D sense that you'll be using. It's just a case of not knowing what the shapes are yet. So you'll get where you want to go, mate. Don't worry. Just keep pushing yourself. If you ever want me to give you feedback on stuff, just drop me a message, man. I'm happy to give you feedback. Of course, there are many better people to go to than me, because I'm not a sculptor. I can sculpt. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, I'm shit at sculpting. Like, compared to the best in the industry, yeah, I know nothing, but I can sculpt. So if you want me to go over some stuff and talk about how I do it, then I'm more than happy to do that. Obviously, though, if you want to reach out to people who are like really at the top, go for it. They may not be able to reply, but by all means, give it a go. You got people like Damien, fuck being able to pronounce his surname, French guy. He represented NPC at ZBrush Summit last year. He also did the Sculpt Off. He does a lot of really cool dinosaur stuff. Like, he's really good at scales. He also did the recent cover art for Substance Spacer. He's one of the best modelers I know in terms of like sense of form. You got people like Curtis Dorr. He can really fucking sculpt. But I don't know how they are with people asking them questions. Not to say they're an arsehole or anything, because they're not. They're actually really nice guys. I know both of them. Don't know if they'll remember me, but I know them, and they're really cool people. But some people don't like being asked questions online. Quite a lot of people like to separate work from life, which is a good thing. I don't separate work from life well enough, I think. He is cool. I know people just get it. For me, I'm a slow learner, struggled with modeling and texturing, more skills, but spent months during summer improving, and it's good. Being consistent is probably the most difficult aspect, to be honest. By the way, while I'm here, do you guys have any idea exporting XGen to 3ds Max Alembic? So exporting hair as an Alembic is really heavy. You can export a MEL file. I don't know if your question is not being able to export Alembic. If you can't export it, you can export a MEL file. If you go to primitives and output, in the tab where it says render, you can set that to export MEL, and that'll save out curve file. You can then load that back into MyArt, then export that as an Alembic. But exporting hairs is always going to be slow, because remember that each hair is a strip of polygons. So most finished grooms will have anywhere from 100,000 to 4 million to 8 million hairs. And each one of those is going to be like, I don't know, each one of those on its own is going to be at least 20 polygons or 10 polygons, depending on the CV count you have. So it's a lot of data. It's a ton of data. It's like loading a raw ZBrush sculpt, like a very high-end ZBrush sculpt into your viewport. Like, it's going to be slow because it's just a lot of topology. Because remember, when you export an Alembic, it's no longer procedural, it's baked geometry. So it's the same as if you modeled it by hand. Now, thank you, man, means a lot. Still need improving. But the watch was my first nice thing. Had to follow a tutorial, but it was amazing, the tricks. Now I can just model a lot more, and love the tools. Yeah, you're a lot better at modeling. Like, you're really good at modeling. I'd say your hard surface is past where my hard surface is. So you've got the skills. It's just a case of reappropriating them to a different thing. But yeah, you'll get where you want to go, man. Don't worry about that. I don't think you have anything to be worried about. If you're a slow learner, so be it. Most people are, to be honest. A lot of people consider themselves slow learners. Even people who learn quite quickly probably still consider themselves slow learners. Right, so. Why is that not deforming? mean, you're not doing anything. These points aren't displaying the way that mean. Oh, that'd be why. So why aren't they deforming though? Oh, I'm an idiot. Okay. Grim. See why this isn't working. Wonder if it's actually the shape node that I need. So what have I fucked up? Let's delete this guy. Is there a way to convert curves back into groom? Might have fucked up. Let's find out. Yeti, create Yeti node on mesh. Create another import. Okay, looks like it's working. Let's try combing it. Hey, there we go. Okay, so don't rename your meshes after you create a groom on them. Or I guess just export the groom first. Right, so let's turn you off. And then let's go into this scatter. Beautiful. It's perfect. No more work required. I wish that's how it would go. Ooh, it behaves quite cool here. I need to get some auto partings going though, don't I? One of my favorite features, which I'm sure I'll grow to hate because it doesn't work the way that I'd expect it to, but it can generate auto parting. And the way I like it, it does it in quite a nice way. Like it looks at your like guide angle changes and parts the fur based on that. So if I set this to like 50, hairs that are going 50% other way, so I don't know if that's too low or too high of a setting. It means the hair parts in quite a cool way. I really like that. I think that's a bit strong though. So let's try setting that. I also don't know what reference position does. I think it just parts different parts of the mesh. Like 0 is parting the full hair, whereas increasing this parts like for the middle of the hair. I'm not sure. The default is 0.5, so I'm going to keep it at 0.5 until I understand what it does. I'm going to lower this. Then we need more guides to kind of actually fix the way this is working. Oh, I need to... I'm really falling behind on the chat today. You have a link. I'd love to see your watch. I love that sentence. I'd love to see your watch. It's nice to speak to people who understand. Helps the sanity. Yeah, trust me, I understand that. The thing is, everyone finds the thing that they're really good at. So, and everyone finds what they suck at. So I'm not saying abandon modeling, because no, stick to it, because you have potential there. What I'm saying is, I know how you would have felt when I was trying to do animation. For me, it ended up not working out. For you, it would probably work out. But like I tried for years to do animation, and I got good enough to do stuff in it. Like I can animate to a okay level, but the moment you put me next to actual professional animators, I get blown out of fucking water. But yeah, and then I did Hulkbuster. Oh, I remember the Hulkbuster actually. That came out really nice too. I forgot you did that actually. Yeah, it's really fucking cool. Unsure if I should share anything. It's Michael stream. Oh, share it, man. I don't care. When you put the link in the chat, it won't work though. Put a space before the .com or something, because if it detects a link, it sees it as spam, so it won't let you post it. It will look to you as if you posted it, but it won't actually go through the chat. So just like where it says .com, just type dot or something, and then people can replace it. But yeah, I'm not the type to be like, oh, it's my stream, please don't share stuff. Like, share your stuff. Like, this stream isn't promotion for me. This is, like I've said this before, but again, there's new people watching this. My reason to do these streams isn't to educate people, it's not to do anything like that. It's to motivate me to do more personal work. It just so happens that I can use it as a chance to educate some people on some of the process. So, you know, why not? Right, I'm going to rename this to import geo, and then I'm going to set you to be that. Cool. Then you can be import groom, and then that's already set up. This scatter will be 10 times density at render time. I'm okay with that. Let's get some basic clumping. So scatter, I'm going to lock the density on this so that the renderer doesn't make it lower density. And then let's just quickly, I'm going to do my small clumps first, I think. And then this grow, I'm going to set that to maximum length of 1. I'm in max length of 1. Then I'm going to create a clump node. One thing I really don't like in the Yeti graph editor, and it's a really small thing, is that the graph doesn't let you scroll further than where the nodes are. So normally what I'd want to do here is like kind of scroll over, then create the clump node, but I can't do that. So I have to create it off screen by doing this, and then scroll over to it. I find that just really unfriendly. It just feels restrictive. And clumping. So let's just reduce the base attraction. And then we'll worry about adding twist and stuff later. So I want a fair few flyaways on this guy too. The thing to consider is the number of flyaways is a percentage, so when we render 10 times the amount of hair, it's going to have 10 times the amount of strays. So that's worth considering. And then, I guess before I do this, I'm going to show you what I meant earlier. So when I was saying you can like add modifiers to your guides, and I know that the correct term isn't guides, but I'm going to call them guides because that's what they are. Like, that's what you're using them as. You can convert them, and after you've converted them, you can convert strands to fibers. So the correct term for them is strands. You can convert them to fibers, add a scraggle, and then convert them back to strands. And what that does is it means you can have oh yeah, we need to grab this guy, plug him in there, and plug him in there too. So you see how like I get my guides as hair, so I'm going to hide my groom for a second here. So I get my guides, I add, oh, I put a curl on them by accident. Let's replace that with a scraggle. Which one's a scraggle one? That one's not scraggle. That one's scraggle. Delete that. It'd be nice if it auto-connected stuff as well. But yeah, so we get our guides, convert them to hairs, apply a scraggle to them, which I'm going to crank way up for demonstration. I'm going to turn off maintain length, and I'm going to set the root scraggle down, and I'm going to lower the scraggle frequency. So I can get something like that. and then I can convert it back to strands so you can't see them, but then I can use those as the guides here. So now if I do that, I'm getting this for free. Like, it gives me form variation for no work. That is such a fucking cool feature. Like, such a cool feature. And it's just part of having a node-based workflow. I know you can do that in Houdini and all that stuff too, but again, I don't care. This is in Maya. As far as I'm aware, this is the only one that can do it in Maya. You probably can do it in Ornatrix. Ornatrix seems to have every cool feature. That's the next thing for me to check out is Ornatrix. But yeah, so this can give you like really cool effects for free, and then I can just turn on the clumping, and I've got all this extra variation. Granted, this works better when you got more guides, because the less guides you have, the more high frequency the variation becomes, but that already is starting to have a general kind of feel to it, and it's mostly for free. Like, I need to add more guides to the top because this is nowhere near enough guide information, but we could try rendering that. Just out of curiosity, it's going to look like shit, so forewarning, it's going to look awful, but it also might not look awful. We'll find out. Let me get my camera, so I'm just going to get a general camera angle like this one. I'm gonna save the scene. 69, nice. Let's hide Yeti Graph Editor, go to the Arnold render view, and pray that it renders. As far as I'm aware, it will, because I've already set it up. Yeah, there we go. Render density is 10 times more, so that's kind of fucked, I guess. I guess we should actually remove that. I do like working at the density. So let's just quickly grab you. Go to render, set this down to 1. I can always increase it incrementally. I also need to, I need to add a width node. That's one of the other things. I'll just hide this. Go to my Yeti Graph Editor. I'm just going to throw a width node in here. So that's you. There we go. I actually kind of dig that super wide thing. But let me just... So width, I'm going to set base to 1 because I hate the fact it's not 1 by default. Tip 2. Base parameter to here. So this is taper to, like for XGen, this is taper but inverted. So 0.8 taper would be 0.2 tip width. And base parameter is the taper start or taper offset. So setting this to 0.2 and setting this to 0.8 is what I normally do, is 0.8 and 0.8 in XGen. And then I just set the width. So this is going to be, you know, too little hair. And again, the number of guides I've got is not good enough. But let's just pick that position. And then hide that. Show you. And obviously it would help to have a hair shader on this too. In fact, let's quickly throw a hair shader on there as well. Assign new material. Arnold. Standard hair. Melanin, let's go with 0.4. Melanin redness down to 0. Roughness I'm going to increase slightly because I want the hair to feel quite dry, and then I'm just going to save that. So again, these guides are not good enough. Do not think of this as like, oh, I should be rendering at this stage. You shouldn't be. Like, this is still visually bad. I'm just curious. But yeah, so I need to catch up. I used to think on the quality and work from companies were due to the companies, but then I realized it's just the artists. Right and wrong. So the reason I say right and wrong, don't be lured into, oh, you know, every artist in the industry knows exactly what they're doing all the time, like they're all perfect at their job. We're not. There's a reason that most artists' work is better in a studio than it is in their personal work, and that's because and that's quite a sweeping statement, there are a lot of personal work like people out there that are incredible. So I don't mean that in an offensive way, but in the industry you have supervisors, you have leads, you have art directors, you have clients, you have people pushing you to new levels. My work quality at work is way higher than my personal projects, like way higher. That's not because I'm better at work, it's because I have people pointing out stuff and calling my bullshit. Like when I do stuff just because it looks vaguely cool, they're like, that makes no fucking sense, fix it. And then I fix it and it looks way better. So don't fall into the trap. And I know that it's an easy trap to fall into because, again, I used to fall into it. I always hold people in massive regards when really they're just the same as any other artist. There's no people in this industry who are legitimate gods. But yeah, what was I going to say? Definitely need to push this further. I'm going to stop that render because I don't need it. Although I will increase the melon just out of curiosity. Yeah, like when you're in the industry, in large studios especially, like I know at NPC, I was pushed beyond what I thought I was capable of all the time. And it's not because I was better in industry. You don't get magically better. You learn a lot from people, but you're still just a regular artist. So if you look at my personal work and compare it to some of the stuff I worked on in film, the difference is night and day, but it's not skill. It's really not skill. A mix of it is time as well, because obviously there's some assets I spent, I'm not going to name the asset or the show, but there's one asset I spent 8 months on, just grooming for 8 months. Obviously I worked on other assets at the same time, so it wasn't like full time on one asset for 8 months. That would be painful. But you get the general idea, right? It's like, it's just how it goes. Like in industry, you're pushed, you spend more time on stuff, you got more people giving you feedback. There's so many things that go into it. It's not just artist talent, and artist talent is definitely an aspect. I'm not saying, oh, industry artists are shit. Like, no. There's some people that scare me. Damien, that I mentioned earlier, he's one of them. He is ridiculously good and very rarely, as far as I'm aware, needs much input. Like, the stuff that he gets input on is stuff that he probably already knew. He just didn't prioritize it in the same way that the client would. Like, he's ridiculous. He scares me. A lot of artists scare me. You'll hear that sentence a lot. It's like, artists scare me. Let's grab this. Well, I guess I want to fix the width, right? So let's get the general... Let's spend a little bit of time on clumping and all that sort of stuff. Let's do 0.2. And then I'll spend some more time on my actual guides. So let's get the scatter. Let's set you up to 200. And then in my render settings, I'm going to set render density to 2 times. So that'll feel a bit better already. Although maybe it's a bit too thin, but we'll find out. I want to go into this clumping. I want to go to geometry. I'm going to go to conform if longer. And then let's see what it looks like if I turn off maintain length. It's just loosening the clumps a bit. I'm going to keep it on, I think. Clumping, that's fine. And a little bit twist. I'll definitely do some expression work on this later. And let's add a few more flyaways. We'll need some scraggle as well, but we'll get to that. Oh, did I almost connected this to itself. That'd been bad. Yeah. Oh, Yeti looks nice. Yeah, Yeti's really cool. Chris Costa scares the shit. Oh yeah, Chris Costa scares everyone. Both with his political posts and his artistic skill. It's really a mix, but I do like. I do look at how to improve my current skill set whilst I'm into other areas. A lot of patience. Yeah, it takes a ton of patience, man. Part of the joy. I quite enjoy learning new stuff because I like knowing that I don't know everything. Because I find it really boring. Like I'd find it so boring. Percentage. Let's set that down. I'm gonna set you to like 1. And let's lower the frequency to like 2, maybe 1. Frequency 2 I think works better. So the strays might be fucking crazy when I render this. But let's just see if that amount of tweaking, like literally barely any tweaking, let's see how much better that looks. The Yeti viewport isn't ideal. I am noticing that. Like, it's not as strong as Action's viewport, but then very few things are as strong as Action's viewport. Like, Houdini's okay, but Action's viewport, I think, hasn't been passed and won't be passed for a while. Let's close you. It's going to save an alt scene. So let's just save this as a snapshot, and let's see what literally 30 seconds of tweaking, well, it's probably not literally 30 seconds, but let's see what a short amount of time tweaking will do. So we need more front lights, and we need some clump scraggle, we need better guides, we need a ton of stuff. But grooming, this is what I like about grooming.
is it's so quick to make drastic changes.
Rhino Ashok also scares me. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Ian Harvey, I'm gonna have to go now. Oh yeah, no worries, man. I hope you enjoy your evening or your night or whatever it is you're doing. And yeah, I'm hoping to start streaming again regularly. I know I've missed a week, but I've just been so fucking mad busy. And obviously buying Yeti and getting it set up was also pretty big. But yeah, but just let me know. Not let me know. I'll be back on Thursday as normal. Rhino is such a nice guy. Yeah, he is. He masquerades as a meme lord, but he's actually quite a nice guy. He's just got very edgy humor. The one thing that I quite like about Rhino is like he's got really edgy humor, but if he oversteps a line and you tell him, he's actually genuinely nice about it. Like he's not a dick. He's a really cool guy. I just quite enjoy his like public profile. He's mental. He's completely mental, but I love him for it. I do wish I spoke to Rhino more. I should speak to Rhino more. But yeah. So something I don't like is that we can still see the body. I do quite like how sparse this fur feels though, so I think we'll have to do an undercoat. Strays aren't feeling great. I think the lighting in general is pretty weak, but we'll get there. This part of the body feels too thick as well. And let's try zooming out. And let's see what it looks like from this side actually. This side that's actually lit. So I might have too much roughness on the shader. I mean, this groom overall is pretty weak, but it will get there. I need multiple layers of clumping and the matted stuff and good strays and all that jazz, but it looks okay for where it is. I want to start getting feathers in. I think in the next stream I'll start getting some feathers mixed in because I can mix everything that I need to do. You're just using one dome light. The hair looks really nice just by the render. Yeah, it's just a dome light at the moment. Oh wait, no, actually it's not. Complete bullshit. You got this light, you got this light, and I think that's it. This light is just a blue light that kind of gets the mask though. It doesn't do much, so it's not going to affect most of the fur. Yeah, it's mostly dome light doing the work. The dome light is one that I made years and years ago. I think it's like 5 years old now. This, but it's something that I made, and then I've actually. There's a lot of better HDRs out there, but I just really like the way this one looks, so I'm keeping it basically. Right, let's go back into this groom. I'm gonna hide you. And I think actually, let me go back to that for a moment. I think this guy is way too strong. Oh, wrong thing. Let's try that without this guy. Yeah, it's adding too much volume, isn't it? So let's try a lower scraggle. Let's turn on the scraggle random. And let's actually view this guy, see what it's doing. So I'm going to increase the frequency of that a bit. I'm going to add a little bit of root scraggle. Then let's turn that on enough. Subtle wave, but that might be all it needs. Yeah, that's better. It's gaining less volume. It still needs a lot more work, but it's gaining less volume now. So let's get that out. Then we're going to need to start adding more guides, I think. Well, we can refine the existing ones, but we will need some more guides. So let's get this hidden. Let's get the tool settings open. I almost called it toolbox. It's not its name. Let's get rid of this camera mask. Blah 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 blah. Attribute editor. Edit grim. Okay. So this area is quite a weak one, wasn't it? So I'm going to pull this in. I need some stuff going on here because that area was struggling too. So let's. Are we going to allow some surface tension? Currently, the guides are hanging completely loosely, which is what the reference is doing. Let me just bring the reference back over. The reference is hanging completely loosely, but I think in our case that might not actually be what we want. I'm also going to ignore the perfect parting because that just isn't how the fur would act in the slightest. It's a cool graphic thing, but I don't think it will work in 3D. I could try to do it, but I just don't want to be honest. I want to do something a bit more flowy. But yeah, I'm talking so much I'm giving myself a headache. I can't imagine what you guys are going through. So let's just pull these in. I'm going to have it follow the body to some extent. Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying Yeti. It's a cool workflow. I don't necessarily like it more than XGen. I just like it. Like, it's fine. I'm not sure I'd recommend people buy it unless they're really into grooming. Like, because this did cost me, I think it's 250 quid when converted to pounds. Because obviously they sell in dollars. And I did have to wait like fucking 6 hours to get a reply to actually get it. Because one thing I didn't expect is when you buy Yeti, you don't get it immediately. You have to wait for the sales team to send you a file with your license. You don't just immediately get given it, which was really frustrating because I bought it at like, I think 7 o'clock in the evening and got it at close to midnight, which was really, really annoying. But, you know, that wasn't ideal. But I think as a whole, I quite like it. The pipeline is what I really like about Yeti. It does seem very secure on pipeline. Like, I'm completely new to it and I'm already pretty comfortable with it, like transferring it to other things. You know, it's relatively easy to debug. The nightmare with it is render pipeline. The fact it's so picky with render engines is so fucking annoying. If they make it bulletproof with render engines, I'm more than happy to stick with it as kind of my go-to grooming tool from now on. But the idea of taking on any freelance with this is terrifying, just because I know the rendering pipeline would have to be so held down, and most clients, at least for my freelance, because I don't do freelance for big clients yet, maybe one day, hopefully one day, but in the meantime, like my clients, they know what they want, but they don't know necessarily the pipeline. So having to talk a client through like why they have to use a specific version of Arnold or why they have to use a specific version of RenderMan and all that stuff for this would be horrible. Granted, you know, clients who approach you for Yeti grooms probably already have that down. Let's face it, you have to have it down for Yeti. But it's just something that I'd be kind of scared of. Of course, you can output Alembics, but that's also a nightmare of a pipeline. It would only really work for stills, unless you did all the shot conversions for them. And it's also incredibly heavy to do that, like file size wise. So what I've quickly realized is that I gave it way too much like side to side. I think I need it to clump towards a point in the middle, so it kind of droops in towards a middle point. I think it works properly with Arnold and V-Ray and RenderMan. Yeah. Yes, the team consists of only 3 people. Really? Jesus. That's impressive. Alright, yeah, I take back what I was saying. They're doing really well. It's still a nightmare, man. But that's impressive. There's only 3 people for Yeti. Credit to them. I thought they were a way bigger company. I'm guessing though Peregrine Labs are larger than that, right? Because they also do bokeh. I guess one thing that might have set them back as well is the whole issue with being illegal in America for a while, or being banned in America. That whole situation is a fucking mess. I can't imagine it helped the studio. I love how under-supported most groom tools are. Like, XGen is comically under-supported. Obviously, externally. Like, for Disney, I'm sure it's amazing, but like, it's so under-supported. I guess there's still quite a lot of groom tools that are one-man operations as well, right? Like, shave and haircut is literally just Joe. I wish I was smart enough to be able to write a fucking groom tool. Well, I guess then the best supported groom tool then would be Houdini, right? Because they have an actual proper development team. Like, they're huge. Or, obviously, proprietary stuff as well, but don't talk proprietary on stream. would you say that it's bad to only know Substance than Mari? If I apply to both animation studios and VFX, I've been places where it seems TV is allowing it, but Mari is more for VFX. I'd recommend using Mari. At this point, I use Substance for my personal work, but whenever I need to do stuff that requires like bulletproof pipeline or lots of custom channels, I request Mari every time. Because Mari is objectively better in pipeline, because it can do whatever you need it to do. It's just not as fun to texture with. So it doesn't automate that much for you. You can set up node graphs that do a ton of work. But ultimately it's very manual, and that's what texturing should be, to be honest. Like, there's a guy I know called Mike, who like his whole thing is like, you don't know how to texture until you've textured in Mari, because Mari is actually texturing, whereas Substance Painter, a lot of people fall into the trap of just dragging a smart material on, and I do it all the time. Like, I just drag a smart material on, tweak it, and then I'm done. But I have textured in Mari. I did it for the Rowan creature, painted him from scratch, and then with FK Twigs, I painted her mostly from scratch. I did a bit of projection, but it was mostly from scratch. Although that was my first time using Substance in a pipeline for Twigs. I did do the earring masks. I think the earring shaders themselves, if I remember correctly, were procedural, but I used like generated masks to drive the roughness, and that was Substance, just like dirt filter. Nothing else, just tweaked a dirt filter. But yeah, definitely learn Mari. It's a lot easier to learn. Like, the node graph is what makes it worth learning, in my opinion. The node graph is so unbelievably powerful. As I said, like, there are kind of specific use cases. Like, I use it now. Like, my choice to use Mari now comes from creating custom channels, because Substance gives you, I think it's 7 user channels, but you can't name them, which is beyond stupid. Not being able to name your custom channels kind of undoes the whole point of having custom channels. But not as fun in what way? I have a non-commercial. Yeah, I use non-commercial Mari as well, because I don't use it for freelance. If I ever do get a freelance that requires it, I'll just run it for a month. So not as fun. But the reason it's not as fun, and that is a subjective term, but it's because it's so manual. Like, if you enjoy manual workflows, it's great fun. But Substance, you can go from having no textures to having something that looks cool in like 10 minutes. The problem is that everyone's work looks the fucking same because they don't put effort into actually painting the textures. And that's, like, again, a hugely sweeping statement. And when I say everyone, I don't mean everyone. Like, it's mostly just kind of beginner art. But you can see, like, oh, that leather material again, or oh, that wood material again. You can see it in my work even. So in this project, I used some of the presets for the wood because I just couldn't be bothered. But the difference is like, I use these presets, but I know how to make it like in Mari if I want to. It's just now a case of saving time. It's not learning the skills per se. But I know the process of doing it by hand. Do we want to pinch this in more? Let's check how that looks. Yeah, the nodes are incredible. I really like node-based workflows. It's one of my reasons to pick up Yeti. It's because if you make something node-based, you can build a library. That's, I think, my main thing is, like, over time, I can slowly build a library of Yeti grooms. And when I say build a library of Yeti grooms, I mean, like, if I want to do matted fur in the future, I could pick up this guy, take the node graph, and then just customize the guides and the maps. So I need more guides. I don't know if it's a way to control the guide interpolation, because the guide interpolation does seem pretty weak. Let's check. Also love that RenderMan always has this here, and V-Ray always has this here, even though I've not got either installed on this project. I think it'll be in this comb node, right? Where do you change the weights? so radius of influence isn't what I'm going for. Export. That's cool. Export attributes to texture. That's so helpful. That means I can block the length in here, then take it to Mari if I want to create length maps, like detailed ones. I have a small asset which I can bring into Mari. Then I'll have time to play with it. I'm working in parallel with you, lol. I almost finished texturing the face. Nice, man. Do you think Yeti is worth it? I mean, depends. For me, I think so, because I use it for work and I want to kind of learn more Groom tools. I want to get more. I want to get more versatile as an artist, because I think that's my issue now. Is like I've been doing the same stuff for a while. I don't want to get myself stuck in a rut, so I'm kind of forcing myself to learn new shit. And a new Groom tool, probably a good place to go, especially since Yeti isn't really that popular. There's not a huge amount of people like Yeti. Yeah, it's definitely popular, but it's not as like well known as something like Action. So I think it's just interesting to do something that, you know, not everyone knows already. It makes you more valuable as an artist. So if you want to look at it purely selfishly, that's one way to think of it. Is like, you know, if there's not many people who do this, then you can charge more. But that's not really my reason, because I don't plan on doing Yeti freelance. I'm just using it because I want to learn it. But that is one way you could approach it. If you wanted to learn Yeti, you could probably charge more for your freelance. But yeah, there's a million reasons you could want to get this. It's just a case of what you want to do. So is it worth it is too broad of a question for me to answer, basically. Okay, so let's start scattering some more guides. So I'm going to go into min distance. Let's set it to like 0.8 and just, let's just set to conform new strands. It's good. We've got some issues there. It'd be nice if there's a way to highlight newly placed guides. I'm sure there is like a layer system I could do. But yeah, let's go to you. Let's find the guides that I just placed. So I know I just placed that one. So you look out of place. Let's fix you. Pull you in. Yeah, I like texturing. I want to learn because models look amazing. Yeah, it does. Like a good model can make a good texture, so I can push a good model to such a higher level. And that's the thing. Like, it's worth learning every skill to some extent, because even Groom, like, you don't need to do like a full creature Groom to get anything that works. You can just go, like, you know, the clothing fuzz that I'll be doing. The fuzz that I'll be doing for this cloth will be the easiest fucking Groom to block. Like, to get it to match reference still takes a while, but you don't need to do guides, you don't need to do anything really, you just place some hairs on it, and it will make the cloth feel so much more real for basically no work. Groom that's one of the reasons Groom is so valuable as a tool in studios, and the key word there is tool. Like, you know, having Groom artists isn't just, oh, we've got hair now. Like, no, it's adding an extra layer of texture to stuff. It's something that displacement can't do, at least not in a convincing way. Displacement can make hair that looks okay, but it very rarely looks as good as a real Groom. Displacement is obviously lighter for a pipeline, and if you're using XGen, it's easier for a pipeline to use displacement. No matter what Groom tool you're using, actually, it's easier to do displacement. But yeah, if you want a specific look, sometimes Groom is the only way to go. A good type of asset, like one asset that I once saw, which is a good example of this, is like something you wouldn't think of, is candy floss. Candy floss, to make realistically, is a Groom task, because it's lots of thin fibers that follow each other around a surface and they clump. It's 100% a Groom task, but you wouldn't think of it. You've got grass, which is obviously can be done in many ways. Groom is one of the easiest ways, and that's quite a big thing. Groom can also be used for general instancing, although I don't really recommend that, to be honest. But Groom is just one of those things, like, it can really push stuff quite far with relatively little work. Like, something that might be incredibly complex to model will be piss easy to Groom, and vice versa, you know? So yeah, it's worth learning a bit of everything, and then that applies to look dev as well. Like, being a pure texture artist, you'll know how shaders work, but if you can get a look dev artist who knows how to do like really fancy sampling techniques to get things to be interactive, that can save you a ton of work in texturing. Like, if you can get a good look dev artist who can create a shader that automatically puts snow on top of surfaces, that's quite a simple example, but that saves the texturing team tons of work. It saves the effects team tons of work. It's just a case of doing the thing. So I hope you get my rambly point. It's like every department has times in which it can save everyone tons of work. Texturing is obviously pretty obvious. But yeah, there's a million ways that departments can help each other. So that's why one of my reasons for wanting to learn a bit of everything, because if I know how to do at least the basics of each department, when I'm doing my own work, I can be like, well, I could spend 10 years trying to model this, or I could groom it in 2 hours, or I could try to do this in textures, or I could just use this one node in look dev that will do the same effect for free. It's so many ways to go about it. I'm definitely rambling a lot right now, but I hope you get my general thing. Let's lower this even more. Let's go to like 0.6 now. Oh, fuck you. Okay. Do I want it to conform then? Maybe I don't want it to conform. What is the length of these guys set to? It's set to 2, right? I guess this is the easiest way for me to place new guides, right? Because now I can see these a mile away. So let's go into the sculpt tool. Let's go into U. Should going to be the easiest. Just pull you in. Oh, I need to conform all these. Not conform them, sample them. So let me just do this, do that, resample all these. That'll make them a lot easier. And then I can just go back one at a time, sculpt them. This brush is acting really weird and I don't know why. 6 CV is not enough. Let me resample this to 10. My brush is acting really weird. Like, it doesn't feel the way it felt before. Like, it probably looks like it's acting the same, but it doesn't feel like it is. Your groom looks cool. Thanks, man. Oh, I missed a few. Feels hard to make a model look nice without real textures. Look nice in a reel without textures. This is why I shouldn't read out loud. I'm awful at it. Any recommendations? I'm weak at lighting. Don't worry about being strong at lighting for a reel. You can just grab a HDR. Like, for a modeling and texturing reel, you don't need to be an expert in lighting. Like, it's obviously helpful to know because you make stuff look prettier, but like, you can just grab a HDR from like HDR Haven, and when a professional's looking at your reel, because one thing to consider as well is the people that look at your reel will know how to light. They'll know how to do a lot of this stuff, so they know that they're not hiring you to do lighting. So as long as your lighting is good enough to see the forms, doesn't matter. Granted, don't underestimate lighting. You can push work a lot further with it. Again, lighting is one of those skills that I really envy quite a lot. I envy too many things. Definitely going to hell. But yeah, I'm UVing while I watch it. That's cool. Oh, hey there, man. How you doing, man? That's not what I want to do. I may end up redoing some of these hairs out on top because I feel like they shouldn't part this much. They should pull forward a bit more. I have a layer set on top. This brush is acting really weird. I can't figure it out. This is slowly going further than I want it to. So the problem is with this being a cylinder mesh, it's going to be a nightmare for guides. It will need a lot more guides than I expected, just because of the way that Yeti seems to handle its guides. It doesn't suit this sort of mesh. Like XGen would be really well suited for this because it interpolates in space, not surface normal. So, like, well, it does use the surface normal, but it doesn't use it as much. It's mainly a space-based thing. Whereas Yeti seems to try to compensate for your surface normals, which is good for short fur, but not great for long fur, to be honest. There's probably a way around it. There's probably a setting that I don't know of, because again, I'm new to Yeti. As I've said multiple times, do not follow my example, because I'm not a Yeti groomer. I'm just a groomer. I will learn how to be a Yeti groomer, though. Maybe in a year I'll know what I'm doing. Let's do this. I really didn't want to size down my brush. Too lazy to do that sometimes. Yeah, I find the viewport colors of the guides a little bit hard to look at over time. Resample. This guide is given too much space, so let's pull him in. Cool, and then let's grab you. You're the last one, right? Out of the ones I just did, I think so. He definitely needs to lie on top. He shouldn't be falling to either side, I don't think. I mean, he should be leaning towards one side. So I'm going to go with towards the camera. Because I don't really plan on rendering it from this angle, because that's just like visually quite shit. The character's not posed for, oh my god, the legs. The character's not really posed for that angle, he's posed for this angle. So, and the legs aren't great anyway. The cloth sim's a bit meh. I'm kind of liking the Superman S that I accidentally ended up with, but yeah. Okay, besides the point. Looks bad from most angles. There we go. Let's check what the groom's doing. I'm going to do a test render as well to see how it's updating. So let's just grab you. Hello. Oh, my lights turned off. That was surprisingly quick to generate the hair. Yeti is a lot more efficient than I expected it to be. So let's just try region rendering. I'm probably going to stream in about 10 minutes or so. Just because I have had a mad day at work, I do need some time to kind of chill. I just didn't want to skip a whole week's streams in a row. I mean, I already have. I didn't want to skip more than a week's stream. Yeah, I think as an overcoat, this might work. We may need to increase the density a little bit more. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to grab the fur body. Let's just set the render density to 4 times. Because I don't want my viewport to get too slow. And we do need some clump scraggle as well. Oh right, okay. So if you go to another brush, it helps. All right, cool. Cheers, man.
Yuri, do you know of any ways to change the guide behavior? So one of the issues I've got right now is that because he's a cylinder, the guides kind of, they try too hard to wrap around. So I don't know if it's still happening now because I've got more guides, but like, it kind of, you see how there's some clumps that are trying to pass through completely? Like maybe up here would be a better place to check. Like there might not be a way to do this. I don't expect there to be a way to do this, but see if I can get a good angle. I can't get a good angle. I had one before. Like the hairs, like, yeah, so here for example, so the guides are all going straight down. Like there's no kind of, they're not crossing each other, but the hair itself is crossing, and that's just because obviously the surface normals are curving, so the guides are too. Is there a way to change it so that it samples based on like world position rather than surface normal? Because if I could get it so that it would just follow what the closest guide point is doing rather than caring what the surface is doing, that might work a bit better. I don't expect that to be an option because that feels like quite a fundamental thing to the software, but it's worth checking at least. Granted, the ideal option is just add more guides anyway, but if it had that behavior, it would be a bit quicker. But yeah, let's check the renders because I didn't have a proper look. So let's go on render view. And I'm going to try showing the environment because I feel that will help give me a bit more context. And let's do it through the actual camera. I feel like I want to do thicker hairs. Granted, this is a block out beyond the block out. Like, this is ridiculous, but mine feels a bit too fluffy right now. I need to tone down the noise. I need to make the clumps a bit tighter as well. Reduce the amount of strays. Like, keep the amount of stray hairs with the scraggle, but reduce the amount of strays on the actual clump, I think. To make it feel a bit, not drier, because drier isn't the word, it already feels pretty dry. In fact, actually I need to check my reference for shading. I think my spec is too rough as well. I really want to add the feathers in, I think that would look quite cool. Yeah, I think my spec is too rough. I'm gonna change that. But yeah, it feels too fluffy right now. I think what I'll do before the end of the stream, I'll address the fluffiness, because the guides down here are close enough to, not the final by any stretch, way off that. They're far too straight and boring, but they give a general effect. I'm going to change to the perspective cam, because depth of field is killing me. Although I could turn it off and render overrides, but that's beside the point. Let's do something like that. Windows, browser, drop view up there. And I need to find hair. Oh, it's going to be AI hair, isn't it? That's the one. So let's decrease that roughness down a little bit. Let's set that back to default and just see how that works. Maybe I shouldn't change the default too early. Yeah, we're getting a bit more of an interesting highlight at the top now. I mean, that helps the dry feeling a bit. I'm having this issue with XGen Core Grumble Splines. Basically, when I add a blend shape and reopen the scene, it fucks up the groom. Any ideas? In what way does it fuck up the groom, sorry? Oh my god, I didn't realise that's intersecting. I need to fix that. Let me just pick an area to sample. Let's sample this area first. I love how bad the candy wrappers look when I turn off depth of field, because they're not built to be seen clearly, they're built to only be seen like with really severe depth of field. Yeah, this feels weird. This needs to be, the clumps need to be way tighter. And let's check up here as well. It also feels too dark. I need to do a fair bit with hair colour, I think. I might even need a bit of diffuse. Yeah, it's just too fluffy. Feels way too dry. So let's address that. Let's go into Yeti. So,
to get rid of the dryness, we're going to need to do a few things. We're going to turn down the amount of flyaways, so that will already help. Because now more hairs are clumped. I can increase the base attraction to make the clumps tighter. I can add a little bit of clump scraggle, which let me just preview you. I feel like I need more CVs. Let's go with 16. Clump scraggle. Let's add some scraggle random. A considerable amount of scraggle random. I feel like scraggle shift I should put a random thing in there. And let's set this to not be every single hair. So that will help a bit as well. There might be too many clumps overall because I've not got the large clumps at the moment. I've only got like the small clumps. Oh, I've only got one of them. Direction is all bad. The length in some areas grows, some areas decreases. So it's groomball splines. Have you? So I've only ever used groomball splines once. As far as I'm aware, you need to bake the groom, save the groom or something. So on your base model, you may even have to resample it. I mean, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure, so I don't want to mislead you. My instinct on that is you need to bake the groom out before you start blend shaping it, unless you want to actively work on it, in which case it's beyond me. I don't know. I always used XGen Core with guides, so I don't really know the workflow properly. But yeah, sorry I can't really help that much. Now we should add a little bit of growth variation to these clumps. Right, so we've got that. And then this scraggle here is only that. Cool. So let's give that a go. That will help a bit. It won't look good yet, but that will help a little bit. Yeah, I mean, look, man, best bet is to check the CG Grooming Artist group on Facebook. That group has a lot of people that know how this stuff works, so it's probably your best bet. Let's hide that. Just show the Arnold render view. I may want to reduce the amount of actual strays as well. Oh, well. Oh, because I'm viewing the wrong thing. That will take me a while to get used to, I think. It's the fact that it renders the one that you've got selected. That feels a bit better. I think I need to lower this. So let's change this percentage to 0.5. Then I think I need the big clumps as well. But let's check. Let's check the whole thing. Just let that sample a few times. Yeah, sorry I can't really help. I know I say thanks anyway, but I don't like not being able to help people. But in this case, it's beyond me, and I feel it'd be wasting both of our time for me to continue to throw ideas. I mean, I can continue to throw ideas anyway if you want, but I just feel like at best I'd mislead you, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to light the fur, aren't I? The depth of field does so much for this scene, oh my god. It scares me how much work the depth of field is doing. It just shows that my assets look a bit shit. I actually don't know how long I've spent on this scene so far, come to think of it. Is the width too high? I think the width, like individual hair width, is too high. This feels very strange. I do need more hair strays. Like clump strays, sorry. What happens if I just turn this off? I mean, that helps. So maybe I need to increase the amount of root scraggle and decrease the overall scraggle. It feels a bit better. Doesn't feel matted yet though. It's got a lot more work to go into it before that, but then I still need to do a lot more guide variation, because ultimately what will make this feel good is once I start getting this sort of stuff where it like crosses itself. I need subclumps. I guess I can quickly throw on some larger clumps. So let's just grab these guys, and then that's locked. So let's set this density multiplier to 5. This is probably really low. And then clump U to U. And I'm going to set base attraction to 0 and then leave everything else as default. Let's just see how that looks. That immediately helped. that helped so much. What the fuck? So yeah, I just needed some bigger clumps. It's still not perfect. It still needs a ton of work. That looks so much more interesting though. I need some strays. So let's get flyaways. So let's set that to 20%. So let that sample for a moment. No, I said I'll end the stream soon. I'll end it in 15 minutes. So that is in London, 11 o'clock. I'm just going to play some Call of Duty or something for a while. I feel like such a basic bitch playing Call of Duty, but it's really fun at the moment for some reason. I just hate Warzone because I suck. I get killed like first every single time. Literally, like I've tried playing Warzone a few times, and I think 5 games in a row I've died before killing anyone, including the gulag. Like I just like, it's weird because when I first started playing Warzone, which is obviously came out like 6 months ago now, weirdly I won my first match in solos, and I've never even come close since. I don't really know how that happened. So there's way too much crossover happening. But I think overall this has a pretty interesting feel to it. It's not good, but it's interesting. I obviously need to fix the face though, because the guide work over here is really bad. I can't tell if the fur needs to be longer on top so that it can all reach towards the bottom more, because the problem at the moment as well, or one of the problems at the moment, is that all the hair is the exact same length. Like we have some length variation, but it's pretty minor. To be honest, I don't really like the fact that there's no cut modifier in Yeti. I know you can do it with grow nodes, but it doesn't make sense to me to not be able to do it after you're clumping. I feel like you'd have more control over clumps if you could do cut after them. Like X-Gen system. Again, I'm a bitch for X-Gen, but yeah, we need to work on guides. Guides are the major issue here. Let's sample one specific area. Let it clean up for a moment. Looks more interesting though. I don't know what's going on here. This makes no sense to me. I think I just need more guides, to be honest. And then, I mean, we can always try turning off the scraggles and the clumping, but I don't think that will help. Let's try it anyway. Yeah, it's fucked anyway. So it's not that. It doesn't update when you turn a node back on, which is kind of frustrating. Only updates when you turn a node off. Yeah, so I need to do a ton more guide work to get this to work correctly. But, I mean, I am quite liking Yeti. I think the workflow is quite nice. It's just going to take some time to get things to work the way I want them to. The guide system is going to be the issue for a while, I think. It has an interesting feel to it, at least. I think once we've got depth of field on this, you won't see it anyway, which is a good thing. It just feels too chaotic. Like, there's no method to the madness. Because I think what makes a groom feel nice to me is always having a sense of flow. Like, even chaotic grooms have a sense of flow. Like this one, I mean, this isn't that chaotic, but like, it's not just straight down. Like, you got some that are passing over each other. You got this kind of bunching up at the end. Down at the bottom, it kind of like flows. Like, there's a little bit of something here, and it's subtle. It looks like it's mostly going straight, but it's not, and that's what makes it feel good. This stuff at the back is fucking mental. Then with this guy, this is a great example of it. Like, there's so much more going on than just straight. Like, they're all curling at the tips. Like, every clump is curling at a tip, which is actually a bit of a nightmare to do. You got these random flicks in here. This looks like it could be one shape that's curling, or it could be multiple clumps that kind of stuck on each other and matted themselves up. You got this, which is kicking itself back up, and overall you've got like a waviness to it, which makes it feel interesting. What mine has at the moment is every shape is like each man for himself. Like, there's no fucking variation on this. It's just like parallel lines, and then some parallel lines that are doing a different angle, then some other parallel lines that are doing another different angle. There's no, they don't have any interplay with each other, and that's what makes it feel too chaotic. If these clumps influenced each other, that would feel a lot more natural, but they don't, so it sucks. I actually kind of like the clump coming through the eye. The mouth, not so much. It feels like a snake, but I'm gonna switch to in fact, no, I'm not. I'm gonna completely ignore what I was about to say. I swear my screen brightness just changed. So let's check you out. No, I need to stop doing that. I need to press that one. There we go. Yeah, it's too much side to side movement. It needs more. I think it needs more guides, really. Either that or it's this problem. That kind of helps. So maybe I need to mask this scraggle. Actually, no, it doesn't help. I'm just being too sensitive. I kind of want to pump it further, actually. Oh, good night, mate. Thanks for dropping by the stream. I hope you've enjoyed it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you, mate. So how much shit do I need to fix? I'm gonna need some guides here, because this area is lost. I feel like this area is quite successful, the way it parts. So we need to kind of work that into other areas. This is too chaotic down here. I actually can't prefer it with maintain left turned off. So, oh, turn you off as well. I tend to work with maintain length turned off like all the time. I find it just makes it so much easier to work on. We should probably do head guides, right? Because this area is fucked. Like, completely fucked. So let's get started on that. We also need to paint a density map to kind of get rid of the fur on the ends. But we can address one thing at a time, right? So let's hide our environment group and our glass and our background. I'm going to keep the kid. In fact, no. I'm going to get rid of the kid. Because he's a bit distracting. Perfect. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of the rig group. I need to clean up my outliner. I guess we can get rid of the lights as well for a bit.
Okay, and save an alternate version of my scene. Oh god. So, I've got 5 minutes before I want to end the stream. So let's push. Tool settings, close Yeti, edit Groom. So we're going to need some guides in the middle here, and we're going to need some guides on the front. We can paint the density on the guides themselves. I prefer not to do that. I prefer to do a texture map. So probably in the next stream I'll get into Mari and start painting some stuff. For now, let's just add some guides down here. And then we just need to go through these one at a time. I guess we can sample every guide to 10 CVs. There we go. So, Sculpt tool. Back into this. Pull it back, pull that forward. We're just going to need to pull everything towards the middle. And then clear the selection. Smaller brush, grab you, bigger brush. Yeah, the absolute key to any good groom is guide work. So even though in theory he's quite simple, he's actually really not. There's a lot to kind of compensate for. Because it's such a simple, oh, that's not what I want. It's such a simple groom that the guides have to be really interesting and cool to actually make it look cool. Because at the moment it just looks like a fuzzy mess. And that, again, is partially because there's no real structure in the guides. So what I'll need to do is, once I've got these vaguely working, is start going in and kind of selecting groups of guides and making more interesting forms, like going for the flow thing I was going on about. Again, the best example being this guy, how like there's sections of it that kind of flow, like they pass over each other. You got these lines that are crossing. Getting that sort of stuff in a structured way, not at randomness, is quite important to getting it to feel nice. I've got an obsession with flow, to be honest, like a complete obsession. It's not as important as I make it out to be for most groom artists. Like a lot of groom artists are a lot better than me at getting their effects from modifiers and still doing good guide work. Like, you know, I don't think anyone does bad guide work and still gets good grooms. Like I don't think it's really possible, to be honest. But the way that I like to work it's 99% guide work and 10% modifier work. Or node work, I guess, in this case. Let's just get that. Part of me is tempted to do guide clumping for this, for like some of the effects. Let's pull him in. What the fuck? Or did I press the wrong button? Yeah, I pressed the button for no reason. Let's get that into place. We're going to need to do some more interesting stuff here. Let's curl him forward. And then curl him to the side. Again, because we're doing noise on our guides in the node graph, you could argue that actually I should be doing pretty straight guides so that I'm getting all my variation from one place rather than multiple places. So if you're getting your variation from multiple places, it can be harder to kind of track where stuff is coming from, which ultimately means losing control of your groom, which then means making a worse groom. Which I guess is worth talking about. I don't know who's still. I know that 11 people are still watching, but I estimate at least half of you people that have never watched a stream before. In which case, welcome. I hope you're enjoying it. If you want to ask any questions, don't be shy. But yeah, like one thing worth kind of discussing is like an issue that a lot of beginner groomers have, and definitely an issue I had, is just adding stuff before you actually need it. Like one thing that a lot of people do that is a long-term issue for them until they kind of snap out of it is like they've got it wrapped in their mind. It's like, okay, so a finished groom has good guides, it has noise, it has clumps. So what they do is
they open a groom, and within 30 minutes they've got guides, noise, and clumps. But the issue is that you need to do them one at a time and make sure it's working, because if you rush past guides and add some clumps and then add some noise, you might not know if your clumps and your guides are doing what you need them to do. And then obviously you can do all that. You just need to remember to turn them off. So like I've added everything, but at many points I'll be turning off my clumps and my noise just to check the guides are doing what they're supposed to be doing to the hair. And once I know they have, then I can start again with the clumps. Not start again, but kind of go in and change all the values now that I've got my correct clumping or correct guide work. And then once I've got the clumping working, then I can add the noise. Because an issue, like the visual way that issue shows itself up, is you see a lot of beginner grooms that are just noisy. Like there's no real form to them. They're just a bunch of fibers with noise. That's all they are. And that is caused by rushing into adding a noise modifier and then thinking, oh well, the groom looks really basic, so I'll add more noise, and that makes it feel quote unquote natural. But then because the guides are still shit, you don't have any consistent form in there, because the clumping's not really there, you don't have any consistent form either. So you end up with just fuzz. There's no form to it. It's just completely formless. When you light it, there's no interesting shadows, there's no interesting kind of flow through the shapes. Which is where my obsession with guides comes from, because the guides are the foundation. If you have shitty guides, you have a shitty groom. So if you're new to grooming and you're kind of curious as to, what should I spend the most time on? Guides. There's no question there. I don't think any professional groom artist would really disagree with that. There's probably a few that disagree with it, but everyone will say, yeah, guides are incredibly important. Obviously, you got exceptions. You got workflows that don't even use guides. Like if you're doing like a pillow groom or like a general coat fuzz, then yeah, you don't need nice guides. But for digidouble or for creature, nice guides are pretty important. So many guides. Let's resample all those and then go through one at a time still. And it's just gone past 11, so what I'm going to do is finish these guides and then end the stream. And then I guarantee between now and then I'm going to find something else I want to finish before I end the stream. I'm actually really enjoying this. I do really like Yeti. It does seem like a really nice tool. It's just a case of learning its weird clumping and its weird guides. Although the guides I feel like I'm getting used to pretty quickly. It's just not the same as XGen. Like you don't approach it CV by CV. Because with even with the sculpt tool in XGen, like you still see the individual CVs that you're influencing, like it highlights them red. Whereas this, I can't see them. So I'm focusing purely on the shape, which isn't necessarily the way I want to work. Like I do want to make sure that on a technical level the CVs are positioned nice and uniformly. Which I guess, because this doesn't give me that information, is probably doing it under the hood and making sure it stays uniform. But I guess the fact it's length conserving probably means that's already being handled for me, but still. I'm looking forward to doing the braid that kind of covers around the mask. I think that'd be quite cool. Let's push that just below that guy. That way a little bit. Which side are you on? You're on this side. So it's towards the middle, which means it would lay it on top of a lot of the stuff around it. So I'm going to give it a fair bit of volume. I'm going to push it close to this guy as well. Do something like that, I guess. Kind of clump it up a little bit. I do wonder about the layering, like what stages to create a groom, like what makes it look realistic or even stylized. There is no clear definition between stylized and realistic hair for me. Both of them require good guides, both of them require good structure to the clumps, both of them require clean noise that isn't overdone. And I know clean noise sounds like a bit of a, I forgot the word, like the technical word, but it's like something that shouldn't exist. Like clean noise doesn't make sense. But what I mean is like not having noise that destroys everything. Noise is a effect that in my mind I use it as, okay, if I have clumping without noise, I have basically wet or greasy style clumps. They're not as tight, sure, like if I was doing actual wet or greasy hair, I'd make it tighter clumping. But when I add noise, I still want to see my clumps at the end of it. I just want them to feel drier, and that's the way I use noise. That's not necessarily the correct way to work, it's just a way to work. I find it works quite well for me, so that's the way I do it. But yeah, like, a groom should look relatively good with just your guide work from a moderate distance. That's ultimately the rule for me, is like, if my groom can look good at like this sort of distance with just guides, I don't like that these guides thicken up as you get further away. But if your groom can look good without clumping and without noise from this distance, then your guides are good. Granted, this character is very simplistic, so it's kind of in an awkward spot where this sort of groom really tests your understanding of guides, because although on the surface they're very simple, it's literally just pulled down, the way that layers is still incredibly important, and to get interesting shapes in something that is just down is really quite a fun challenge. So this guy isn't the best to demonstrate kind of, oh, this is what I look for, because frankly speaking, I'm kind of winging it. I'm just going off like what my instincts are telling me to do. I do have my reference on the other screen, which I'm constantly checking, but I'm not at the stage of matching reference yet. I'm just blocking to get the general feel of the reference, and then later on I can do another pass of the guides to actually get a bit closer. I'm going to clump those up a little bit. But yeah, like my general approach is make it look as good as I can with guides. Once I've got as far as I possibly can with guides, then I'll work on refining the clumping. Once I've got as far as I possibly can with the clumping, then I'll start really developing the guides. And I don't mean the noise. And I don't mean like, oh, I won't touch clumping or noise until I've finished my guides. Like, no. Because as you've seen, I've already set up some basic clumping and some basic noise, but it's placeholder at best. Like, there's no maps painted in to add variation, which is a big no-no for realistic grooms. And ultimately, as much as this is going to be a stylized piece, it's still going to be mostly realistic in terms of the way it's built. I don't know what I just flooded. Probably length, because it's the only attribute I have. But yeah, so, working all of them simultaneously, but focus on one more than the others. Because you don't want to develop your clumping. I guess that's a good way to think of it. You don't want to make your noise perfect before you've got your clumping in place, because you don't know what your clumps are going to be doing. When you change your clumps, the noise will change too. Because they all interact, you have to work from a hierarchy of form. It's like with modeling, you work at your low subdiv, then you work at the high subdiv, and then obviously in games you break it back down and all that sort of stuff, or in film as well, I guess. But you don't work on your high poly details before you've got your low poly shapes. Like even in sculpting, I guess using low poly was the wrong word. You don't work on your skin pores before you work on your skeleton and your muscle structure. Doing skin pores before that is the hallmark of all beginner art, including my own when I started. It's the same with grooming. Guides are your base forms, clumping are your secondary forms, and noise is your tertiary forms. And obviously there's a ton of other things that go into grooming, but that's like my 3-point thing. And then like length variation to like an individual hair level is like your skin pores. That's where you don't really notice the shit, but it's there and you feel it. I'm gonna need some guides here, aren't I? It's quite a large empty area. Gotta work through all the others first though. My eyes are getting pretty heavy, getting a bit sleepy. So we'll have to end the stream soon. I'll keep in mind on my guides being the main importance. I'll definitely show you my stuff. I'll add you on Facebook. I'm pretty sure we've already got each other on Facebook. I'm like 90% sure we've already got each other on Facebook. Because I've known you for quite a few years, right? Like, you used to send me stuff back when I was in university. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we're already connected though. I know for a fact we're already connected on LinkedIn because I see your stuff from time to time on there. And I see your stuff as well on Access VFX because we're both on that as mentors. I feel like I need to go on a long walk. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to when I move out of London is like being able to go on nice walks that have lots of greenery. Because really, if I want to go on a walk with a lot of greenery, I've got two choices. I can either walk, 20 or so minutes to Regent's Park or Hyde Park, or I can get the tube out to like a foresty area. But it's just like the idea of getting a tube to do a nature walk is so dumb. And there's only so many times you can walk around Regent's Park without it feeling boring. You just get used to it eventually. Which is weird because it's a very beautiful place. I remember spending like my first day in London. Once I got moved in, I literally just went out and sat in Regent's Park for like, I think legit about 3 or 4 hours. Just sat there and just kind of enjoyed it. It was just so cool being in London. To be fair, actually, when I moved to London was my first time going to London, except from one trip that was like a few hours. Which was a terrifying prospect because I was one of the first people in my year from uni to actually move to London. I think there was one other person who moved on the same day as me. In fact, no, cause she moved like a day after me. I think I was the first person from my year in uni to actually do the move to London, and I think it was within a day or two other people had arrived too. Because quite a few of us started on the same day at MPC. But it's just like moving to a town I've never been to or a city I've never been to. It was fucking terrifying. So on that first day, once I got all my stuff moved in, I just went to the park and just like fucking cried. Didn't actually cry. I don't cry that easy, I hope. But yeah, I just chilled. Did nothing but chill for hours and hours because the stress was real. Yeah, the parks in London are really nice. I do think that's something that's so important that London has got right is like it's a massive city. It needs to have parks. Like humans just need greenery, right? We can't deal with we're really bad at feeling happy in the concrete jungle. Grey is the most depressing colour. And London, that's one thing I do like about London actually is the I'll say one thing. I do like a lot about London. I will miss it when I leave. But like the amount of variety in the architecture is so cool. Like you can see the eras that London's been through because there's still some buildings that are standing from around the time of the Great Fire, which is like what, a couple hundred years ago now. There's still some buildings from then that are that style, not the like palaces or anything. Tower of London is obviously like, I think the site that the Tower of London is on is actually potentially like 2,000 years old or something. Not the Tower of London itself, that's nowhere near that old. But the site was like already had like camps on it like 2,000 years ago or something, or maybe even longer ago. I remember it being a stupid number that I did not expect. Alright, let's add a few more guides in here. Did it really have to be that many? Okay, let's fix those guys and then I'm done. I swear I'm done after that point. We'll just do a quick render. I'll leave it rendering for like an hour while I lie in bed. Because I won't go to sleep for a while. I just need to lie in bed and watch some YouTube. Do nothing for a while. Because literally I finished work today, went on a walk because it was mad stressful. And then got back and started streaming. So I've not really given myself a proper break today. I just really enjoy grooming. So I thought I'd do this to chill. I just saw that you sent me a friends code. I thought we already had each other on Facebook as friends. Apparently not. Yeah, I'll accept it in a moment, mate. I'm genuinely surprised that we're not already friends on that, because we have spoken quite a few times before. Apologise for that. Oh, the Sphere Hunters released a new video. Also, if you guys are into like video game breakdowns,
There's a YouTuber called The Sphere Hunter who has like one of the most interesting voices I've ever heard in my life. Like she's got a voice that's built for narration. It's really fucking good. I recommend checking out her videos. They're really well made. It's just The Sphere Hunter, as in ball sphere. Just realised these new guides are going to be a higher CV count, aren't they? But I haven't fixed it. No, Mario's here. So Mario, who just commented, or may have just commented, I've not looked at the chat for a couple of minutes. He is the other guy that I mentioned at the start of the stream. His tutorial Introduction to Yeti is what's got me started with Yeti. He's also a very knowledgeable guy, and we've not spoken many times, but he seems like a really nice guy. I know you're watching this, so I don't mean to speak about you in the third person, but yeah, you seem really nice, dude. I recommended people to check out your stuff earlier. For anyone who's like interested in Yeti. There we go. I've got so much guide work to do before I'm happy with this. Obviously, you still need to remove the density from the front, but we'll do that at a different point. Let's see how this looks. So let's go into here. I'm gonna alt save. Would love your feedback, and yeah, I thought I had you. Feel like I had so many people. I don't want to bug people. Oh, don't worry about bugging me, mate. This is one thing I always repeat to people, is like whenever people say, oh, I don't want to bug you, like if you're bugging me, I simply won't answer. Like, don't be afraid of sending stuff. I'll just say, if I'm too busy, I'll say, hey, look, I'm pretty busy right now, can I reply later? That's what I do most of the time. So if you're too busy, if I'm too busy, don't worry about bugging me, because I will tell you that I'm too busy. I won't be sat there being like, oh, I wish he wasn't messaging me. I'll just tell you. So don't worry about that sort of stuff. I'm pretty chill when it comes to people messaging me. Like, I genuinely don't mind. We really need to fix the front of this. I should put this in display there, shouldn't I? Just for temporary. Yeah, because we need some guides here, basically. So I swear this is the last thing I'll do. Let's add some more guides just at the front, just to pull it back. So if we do keep some density, at least it's managed. That is not what I want. This is what I want. Edit groom. Close the outliner. I'm gonna add a guide. There. Accidentally added two guides. Click the mask. I find it weird that you can add guides, but you can't remove them when other like, yeah, I find it weird that you can add guides but not remove them when another guide is masked like this. This is gonna look so weird. Yeah, it's definitely a density thing that I need to change, but I just want to add a guide here just to kind of remove some of those hairs that are acting strange. Yeah, no, the videos have helped a lot, man. I need to rewatch some of the ones on expressions, I think. Because obviously I've come from a few years of using Next-Gen, so things like using hash to generate a random number between 0 and 1 rather than just typing rand. I really don't like that Yeti doesn't have an expression editor. Like, it can do expressions, but you have to do it in a single line. That I really don't like. But, you know, it's... But yeah, it seems like a pretty cool tool. It's just a few things that I need to get to grips with that aren't usual for what I'm used to. Put a guide there. I'm gonna remove that guy. Something like that. There we go. So I'm just gonna save this. Whatever we've got is what we've got.
start a render with it. Let's make you visible. Hopefully this is a bit better now. Yeah, it's not passing through the mask as much. It's still passing through because we need to do a lot more work up here. I'll need to add that braid. I also need to fill out the top, I think. The top's pretty low in volume. Like the mask sits without it. You can split up expressions with multiple attribute nodes, like creating an attribute holding parts. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Yeah, so you can generate an attribute in one. In fact, one question I actually wanted to ask is, so with texture nodes, when you create a attribute using a texture, is that persistent then throughout the whole graph, or is it just only used in the node immediately afterwards? Because one thing I was curious about is obviously with something like clumping, I prefer to use like a Mari texture workflow for generate. I don't really like the idea of painting my maps on the guides directly or on the strands. But obviously for something like clumping, I'd need like 4 or 5 maps, so I don't know if those would kind of get in each other's way, or if I have to do some weird blending to get it to work, or if I have to transfer it to an attribute groom. To me, like, I mean, ideally they're persistent, but I just don't know if they are. If they are persistent, that's fucking fantastic. Right, let's create the light group, cam group, rig group. In fact, we don't need the rig group. Don't need some meshes. Environment, you, and you. Cool. Let's see how that looks. Don't need the etigraph. Don't need the U anymore. See, normally I'd split all my workspace across 2 different screens, but obviously with streaming, like it's, I obviously want everything to be on screen. It can be used everywhere afterwards. That's great, yeah. So I just need to figure out kind of how I want to structure them then, because obviously with like Houdini, for example, it's normally best to do all your paints at the very beginning, but then it might be easier to have a paint node just before the node where it's actually used. But that's something that's just a case of personal taste, I guess. So let's check our render cam. Yeah, so let's see how this looks. It's still very chaotic. We do need to do a lot of cleanup on this. There's too much random variation. And you are in the wrong place. So I'm just going to leave this rendering. It'll probably hog up my whole CPU, so you may find the stream getting a bit chuggy. Only density textures before the scatter node did not get forward. Okay, cool. So I guess then, if you're doing multiple textures, well, I guess you wouldn't do multiple textures for a scatter node, right? So it should be fine anyway. But yeah, so what do we need to do? Here's the list of things I need to do. I need to fix the volume of this, because this feels too thick. I feel like I need to either shrink down the mesh or not shorten the hair, just like slick the hair to the body a bit more, because it takes up too much screen space. I need to break up the clumping in a way that isn't noise, because these strands feel too defined, like these speck highlights are way too clean. I need to get the direction variation here to be a lot more consistent. It just means more guides ultimately. I need to add volume to the top here, because this parting just loses too much volume. It makes the mask feel out of place. I need to find a way to get this to pull to a nice point. I need to add density maps. I need to add scraggle to the hair. I need to add width variation, length variation. I need to fix it to the curtains so it feels like it's actually, the curtains are sat on the fur rather than anything else. Potentially need to add an undercoat to make this bottom silhouette feel a bit more natural. And we also need to do some straight clumps. Other than that, we're done. It's just that other than that is the whole groom. So yeah, we'll have to kind of slowly push forward on that. I really, the area that's weakest for me is this silhouette here, because the silhouette of the reference is so nice in how simple it is. It's got so much more volume than I'm giving mine. So I don't know if that's the mask. I think the mask is about the right size. It actually should be a bit bigger. So this fur needs to be way more voluminous, like way more voluminous. But this is what, a 3.5 hour. It's not too bad. It's not an awful groom, considering I've been sculpting guides the whole time. But yeah, we've got a ton more work to make this look natural. But yeah, so we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. If anyone new to grooming is looking at this and thinking, oh, how do you even know to push it further than that? It's just something that comes with time. Push yourself as far as you can. You'll eventually get to where you want to go. I've still got a ton to learn. I can look at work from many groomers and learn a ton from them. My general workflow is a lot more friendly towards Xgen, just because I've been using Xgen for so long. So over time, I'll find a workflow that works better with Yeti. But for now, I'm probably going to over-rely on guides. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks for doing the streams. Watching about begging at the beginning is incredible. I want to try a rig as well. Feels like a tut you have done. But I love watching them. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call what I do a tutorial, because most of what I do is winging it completely. But I'm glad you find them helpful, man. I will, if you want to send me some questions, I'm more than happy to. I'll be continuing this groom on Thursday. Tomorrow night I'm going to take a night off, because work is, as I said multiple times now, work is fucking mad at the moment. So yeah, I'm gonna take tomorrow night off. But yeah, we'll be continuing this groom on Thursday. Hopefully we'll kind of get rid of that chaotic feeling, make it feel a bit more natural, well, not natural is the wrong word, but make it feel a bit more organic. And yeah, we'll see how it goes from there. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's watching. It's nice to see Mario and Yuri here as well. You guys are, as I said at the beginning of the stream, like the people I've been following for Yeti, so it's really cool to have you guys drop by. But yeah, hope everyone enjoys the rest of the night, and I'll continue on Thursday if any of you want to drop by. I won't be posting this continuously to CG Grooming Artists, just because I don't want to spam the group. If you do want to keep up to date on what I'm doing, just add me on Facebook. I post when I'm about to stream on there. How do you know when you're happy before moving forward? I don't. Normally, I just have the attitude of good enough and move forward. I very rarely have something where I'm like, yeah, this is perfect. I almost move forward once I've got to a point where the progress is slowing down to the point of making it no longer fun. Because these projects for me are completely for fun. They're for me to learn new stuff and just to have a bit of fun with it, which is why I'm doing it, after doing a full work day. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to head off because it's getting late. Everyone enjoy the rest of your nights, and hopefully see a few of you return on the next stream on Thursday. If not, no problem. I'll be posting the final thing when it's eventually done. I think in about 3 streams time I'll be doing a kid's hair as well, because currently that's a sculpt. So if you want to drop by for that, maybe I'll update the CG Grooming chat or CG Grooming group with when I start in a human character, or human-ish, because that might be more interesting to more people. But yeah, anyway, see you guys.